Okay, live, February 1st, Groundhog's Day Eve, 2025. This is Saturna X. Link is on the show notes. So Infinite Plane Saturnday used to be a staple. It needs to be again. I've missed too many Saturdays. We bump it to Sundays, but we've got to keep it Saturdays. And the whole point of IPS Saturdays is to review the previous week and take calls on any number of subjects. Doesn't mean we have to agree. People are allowed to be wrong. You can be Mandela affected. You can be afraid of chemtrails. Nobody cares. So let's start with the IPR points of interest. And the chat should show up on the screen again. I added the code again, and for some reason it hasn't been popping up. But there are people commenting. It's just not showing up on video. In fact, we get a crazy number of comments. So we'll start with a metascript view of the two crashes. Let's just talk about this really quick, because the end of the year we were talking about the homestead and the situation of LA getting nuked. Then you have the fires, and it's compared to Hiroshima by Trump, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's compared to a nuke by Jay Leno. And the rhetoric continues along this trajectory where the media says 30,000 evacuated because of this fire going, quote, nuclear. So they add this terminology, they paint it in a certain way. And then I see this movie coming out, which looked like just a simple action movie called Flight Risk. And I went to see it with the presupposition that this movie is going to foreshadow what's happening on the world stage at that exact time. And I did the same thing with The Madness. I did it with Leave the World Behind. I do it every time I watch a movie. Even Wicked, about the Wizard of Oz, the sequel, Wicked, the prequel. I said, I'm going to go watch Wicked for its predictive programming messaging. I didn't announce that one. I was kind of embarrassed that I was going to watch it. Sort of like with Barbie. I watched Barbie. But you have to. You have to know what is being downloaded into the collective psyche, or into the psyche of the average citizen of the mainstream media fictional universe. Now, this is Planet Netflix, if you haven't noticed. And so in this case, I'm watching Flight Risk because of the timing. I'm saying, look, it comes out January 25th. It's the same week as the Challenger explosion, which was an anniversary of Apollo 1. But the Challenger explosion and the Columbia explosion happens that week. Kobe Bryant's explosion that week. On 2/2/21, you had the Starship blowing up. You had the year after that, they blew up an effigy. A Falcon 9 had an effigy of some astronauts because they were testing their ejection procedures. So I was just pointing out that this is the time of year that the power elite like to do their aerial immolations. Think about people blowing up in the sky. Well, what has happened since? Again, Flight Risk. And Flight Risk starring Mark Wahlberg, but directed by Mel Gibson. And that's extremely significant considering, Mel Gibson directed Braveheart. And you saw how the iconography of Braveheart, the poster aligned with the Trump assassination attempt, the fight, fight, fight pose, the war paint avatar. He was called Braveheart by the New York Post. So the significance of Mel Gibson in this can't be understated. He is a metascripter. He's not an insider. He's not a white hat. He's not working with Team Q to get the Clintons or whatever their fan fiction tells them this week. Gibson is 100% a metascripter, on par with a James Cameron or Stanley Kubrick in terms of his influence. And we'll have to look into him specifically. But so I watched this movie not realizing it was a Mel Gibson flick. I thought it was Wahlberg's. But anyway, it was pretty simple. It involved a small plane, people fighting on the plane, a lot of near crashes. So if it seemed to me that just like Homestead about LA getting nuked shows up against the backdrop of the fires, I said this is, again, likely going to precipitate, foreshadow, or run concurrent with something that occurs in the, quote, real world. So what do we have? Well, we have the American Airlines flight hitting the Black Hawk. Now, that has some correlation to Kobe Bryant and his helicopter crash, for one thing. Layers of significance is here. Ice skaters on board the plane, The day before the crash, Tanya Harding appears on the world stage. Then we have Nancy Kerrigan. Like, so something's going on here. A lot of narrative automatically attached to it. This is the fault of Trump and Musk for firing certain people. No, this is the fault of DEI because it's an anagram for die. False rumors of DEI hires piloting the craft, all under the false presumption that DEI means lowered standards. That's not what it means. It may not be meritocratic, but it doesn't mean lowered standards. Easy foot bullet to avoid. Now, these are contrived narratives, which tells me this thing is likely fake. So the more we're looking into it, the more it seems to fit this pattern. And then, of course, flight risk is in the background. And irrational exuberance noted this. This is incredible. So as we pointed out, whenever I look at these things, and on day one, I said, I'm not just going to assume this is real as reported. Reagan National Airport crash, drills, and metascript clues. I put this out immediately after. Now, in the wake of this thing, there was a contrast made between Donald Trump's response to this event and Ronald Reagan's. You see, Donald Trump said, what am I going to go visit? The river? What am I going to swim? When asked if he was going to visit the site of the crash. Very callous. Obviously it's a PR move, but for him to just brush it off like that was kind of cold. Somewhat out of character. But then, at the same time, they played Reagan. And after the Challenger explosion, now, if you remember night one, I said, they're going to compare this to the Challenger. They're going to make these comparisons in terms of the scope of the disaster. So I made that connection. Well, they did, in fact, say that Ronald Reagan's response to the Challenger is a good contrast with Trump's response to this event. And I'm just pointing it out, that the mass media made this correlation as a way of shaming Trump. But again, this is all intentional because the Challenger week, Challenger explosion, the Columbia explosion, and you can get into the nuance here. Challenger explodes, 1 minute, 13 seconds. Columbia explodes, the 113th shuttle launch. Penguinotti says runway 33. Yeah, precisely. So there are tons of clues. But now there's this. There were divers from DC Fire EMS practicing their skills in a frozen tidal basin by Jefferson Memorial. So we were looking at these drills being conducted on the water. How convenient. And one of the things I say to look for, hallmarks of a hoax, are there concurrent drills? Are there metascript clues? There are connections here with the drone hysteria. Runway 33, Fire Command, the accident happened near the river. Both the helicopter and plane crashed into the river east end of runway 33. Now, another thing to note here, as I said, these things happen concurrent with drills. They use drills as a cover for psyops. Do you know what the excuse was for the helicopter being there at that time and place? Drills. They were doing continuity of government doomsday drills. So under the excuse of doing a doomsday drill, they were in that place. And others have added on to this, the idea that it was meant to hit Trump. But my contention here is that I would imagine these things are just remote controlled, that the passengers were simulation dummies. So again, our hearts go out to the manufacturers of the hyper-realistic mass casualty simulation dummies. But no real people were hurt in this event. And if you have information I don't that contradicts that, feel free to share it. You can call in. But I saw it on CNN is not evidence. Then you had this weird post with the Philadelphia Eagles. And we're coming up on the Super Bowl next week. Eagles, and then you have Kansas City Chiefs. The AA flight came from Wichita. So you have these Kansas connections. But the day before, Philadelphia Eagles tweeted this image of a helicopter. Strange. Again, Kobe Bryant, what's up with this stuff? The Twitterer, Vincent Crypt 46 said, so an American Eagle traveling from Kansas crashes in DC, Chiefs Eagles, landing on runway 33. And then you had the built-in division. Trump fires heads of the TSA. Musk fires some people. The excuses, or rather the scapegoating narratives, are designed for the left to have a perfect scapegoat in their enemies, Trump, Musk, and for the right to have their perfect scapegoat in DEI, which Trump just got done away with. So you could see how this works. And the fact that it has these built-in narratives tells you it's psyop theater. Elon Musk bumped FAA chief from post 10 days before DC plane helicopter crash. All the hallmarks of a psyop, division narratives, metascripting clues. The timing of it, it's this week of aerial immolations. Challenger, Columbia, Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, maybe ties to the year of the snake. We have that connection. And again, the 2/2/21 Starship explosion. A 2/2 Groundhog's Day, 33rd day of the year. But this is what I wrote here. I said this is the week for aerial immolations. So then we follow this up, and what do we have? We have another crash. We have the one in Philly. And that one has many people looking at it as it looks like a missile. Yeah, it looks like a missile. I mean, it hadn't even been up for a minute when it crashed. And the more I look at that one, the more I think this too was likely psyop. Anything they can fake in the movies, action movies, they can fake on TV. Philly plane crash, quote, mushroom cloud forms at the scene. So what is with all the mushroom cloud stuff? I mean, the fires, the nuke, they use that terminology as hyperbole. Oh, it's like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, but they're throwing this stuff out there. Mushroom cloud. Christ Consciousness posted this on Twitter. It's incredible that a plane crashed into a subdivision in Philly and no one outside the plane was killed. Could this be foreshadowing for an event at the Super Bowl? There was a 33-minute blackout during the last time there was a Super Bowl in Philly, 2013. Was 2013 a trial run for next week? And yeah, the blackout bowl is very significant. I got a comment here from Conspiracy Alarmist. He said, there's too many psyops to keep track of. Do I really need the details? I saw runway 33. I saw 19 bodies and I stopped watching. No more info required. Gavel hits desk. Guilty of psyopera tactics. Psyoperatics. Exactly. If any part of it is fake, and this is axiomatic, if any part of it is fishy or fake or too politically expedient or it just happened on Netflix, your immediate assumption of this many people died needs to go away. It needs to just drop down to 0. Like now you're entering into this area of, is it even real? But again, he said here, I saw the 33s, the 19s. I knew it was a work of fiction. It gets even better. So let's take a look at this one. We were talking about Tanya Harding showing up right before the event. And Tanya Harding's known for sending somebody to bust the knee of her competitor, Nancy Kerrigan. So Tanya Harding just showing up. It brings ice skating and that whole story into the frame of reference, which we all share in our collective Truman Show. Then you have the event, and you find out that you had these figure skaters on board. Well, now you have Nancy Kerrigan wearing a white turtleneck, just like her old picture, and she is bawling. She's just crying. I'm saying an ugly face crying. Like just committing to the bit here. I mean, I'm 100% this is a crisis act. But anyway, bizarre video, 10 million views, crying. Now, Jeff Berwick, Dollar Vigilante's only explanation for it is we must live in a 3D video game. And that's a trap. You know how many truthers who can't figure out the connections between the news events and everything else immediately default to these quasi-supernatural explanations? Like, oh, the simulation did it. We're in a video game. It's like, you're turning a blind eye to government propaganda that's targeting you in a very specific way. I mean, these are manipulative tactics that manipulate everybody you know. And you're giving them a pass because you're blaming it on God or the universe or being in a video game. That's an unserious explanation. It's an unserious and lazy explanation. Oh, the reason for these coincidences is we live in a video game. No, that's not only untenable intellectually, it's just lazy. It's lazy at this point. And again, you're missing the bigger picture here. But I'm saying this is a facet of Trutherville. They're not allowed to know because they're gatekept. You're not allowed to know how much is faked. Your presupposition is it's real, but the deep state did it. Let's listen to Nancy Kerrigan cry for a minute. Okay, here we go. Nancy Kerrigan, American
how to process
figure skater.
Oh shoot, I'm sorry.
No,
Dry.
That's why I'm here.
Eyes are dry. Sorry. Eyes are dry.
I think it's a shock. I wasn't woken.
And they all do this. They get their fingers and they tug at their eyelids, and it doesn't even work. It just irritates the eyes. I could give them some pointers, but again, this is fascinating because it just brings back the connection to Tanya Harding and ice skating. This is just really strange. Now, again, this is likely a PR stunt, sort of like you had Steven Gutenberg saving lives in front of or in Los Angeles, moving cars, helping the fire department as action heroes in Hollywood movies do. It's like, no way he was doing that. Why is this guy the face of this event? And then you look into it and you can see, okay, he was in a movie where he was recently pictured walking around with a fire poker. How weird is that? And then he was in Lavalantula, about giant tarantulas that spit lava and set Los Angeles on fire. Let me go through your comments. Penguinotti says nobody died, nobody cried. Well,
Up in the morning and saw it. I was watching like all night.
that was a laugh cry. Like I was going to say, well, we have one crier here, but no, I'm sorry, that was not a cry.
I was watching like all night.
Sorry, is it legal to criticize the performances of crisis actors, or is it like a hate crime now? I got to be careful. I don't want a hate crime. All right, joined by Clockwork 113, Frank Murr, Bird Nest Ratfest says Black Hawk has remote control operation apparently. Exactly. And this was done. This was part of a drill. So what's more likely? They're conducting a continuity of government doomsday drill, and then it gets hit by a plane, or the plane hitting it was part of the drill, that there weren't any real passengers in it. The plane was likely remote controlled. Andrew Solomon says those poor dummies. Yep, Andrew says planes falling out of the sky, you called it. Well, let me show you this before let me go through see who else is here. I'm just waiting. We got 127, great numbers. You're not going to believe this predictive programming we picked up. Irrational Exuberance found something in the movie poster of Flight Risk. You have to see it. All right, Chris Diamond, Jennifer Reeves, Thrustazar, Esteban, thanks for joining. Violet Pangon. And Let's Go says, does she claim to know anyone who's died, or is the story just because she's a skater and has extra skater empathy? Yeah, exactly. I mean, why isn't Tanya Harding crying? Stuart McKenzie says military drills in Philadelphia all week too. Well, speaking of mushroom clouds, from the 26th to the 31st, they were doing all kinds of drills for nuclear incidents in New York and surrounding areas. So this is what the thing. If you're going to do a drill that involves flying a remote-controlled plane into a remote-controlled helicopter, film it, shoot it, and then you're going to land a plane in a densely populated area, this has to be done under the cover of a drill to create the closed movie sets, to get the people in place. They're doing drills and pretending like it's real. That's what I mean when I say simulations. They simulate an event, and they play it on the news, and everyone downloads it like it's real. Very simple. Diana Southard says she needs a makeover. Let's Go says laughing. Okay, I think it's laughing too. Penguinotti says Duper's Delight. FF says, I've been hassling ChatGPT about auto-hoaxing, and it's a gate kept about any conspiracy. Grok isn't. But it's okay. Because the thing is, it's always going to be gate kept until the truth gets saturates the sea of irrelevance. We just have to be a little more prolific. For example, the words that we use, we have to take these words and prevent them from being co-opted. So we talk about media skepticism, but we refer to it as auto-hoaxing, which was originally a pejorative. They would say if you're calling it fake, you're just automatically calling it a hoax without waiting for the crisis, without waiting for the victims to grieve. You're wrong. Think about this. I had Paul Joseph Watson from InfoWars banning me from a chat after that Nice truck attack because he said that we were being disrespectful to the victims. I'm like, I don't have any empathy for dummies, for training dummies, fake dead people. They don't matter to me. But their presupposition is if it's on TV, if it's on the news, it's real. You just got to determine who did it because the media lies. So it's just like an alternate story, but they still believe it. So we took that term because they said we were auto-hoaxers, which was basically a pejorative. Like, you're a conspiracy theorist if you believe conspiracy theories. But auto-hoaxers were a subset of conspiracy theorists that were exiled. We were actually kicked out of these rooms. What we're doing is not mainstream conspiracy theory. This is not InfoWar stuff. This is not stuff that any of the influencers will talk about. Candace Owens is out there, on the fringes, talking about fake moon landing, transvestigating the French president's wife. And yet, she could never talk about fakery at the level that we do. Tim Pool could never touch this. Tim Pool will give a platform to someone like Donnie Darkened, who pretends to be some prophet who knows that Trump is the Antichrist, but he's really just a chat GPT using shill, who's actually a pro-MAGA guy. I mean, they'll entertain all kinds of nonsense. Joe Rogan just had someone on the show talking about how there are reptilians. And David Icke is mad that he wasn't the subject matter expert that was invited. Anyway, it's all gate kept. Don't be fooled. If they're not auto-hoaxing, they're A, not paying attention enough, or B, they're on a leash. It's one of the two. Okay, Joe Santos says, I found something about the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting. Yeah, please let me know. That whole event was intriguing. Butler, Pennsylvania, the return trip, as it connects to the movies White Noise and Megalopolis, among others. Okay, moving on. Oh yeah, Joe Santo, they did. Synchromorpheus posted that. They recreated the seven-headed beast with one of the injured heads, the old classical painting. So when the Secret Service are around Trump and they're all shuffling away and he has his fist up in his bloody head, it does look like the seven-headed beast, Revelation, with the wounded head. So Revelation 17 describes a beast with seven heads. To John the Revelator. And if you look at the representations of this seven-headed beast, various representations of it, but it's not hard to see how this closely resembles the image of Trump being shuffled off the stage after they got his shoes. And I said from the very beginning, when I first started looking at Trump, that the symbolism of the MAGA hat ties in also to the whore of Babylon, who had the words Babylon the Fallen across her brow. Well, what is Make America Great Again? America's Babylon. So Make America Great Again means America has fallen. Scarlet hat. The whore of Babylon is described as a sorceress, as a witch. MAGA means witch. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I saw that comment, Johnny Santo. Jimmy Horn Jr. was named one of the 8 rising stars from college football, and he fits the little horn, was born 9/12/02. They use football and sports to communicate a lot of their occult philosophy, ideas, rituals. That's why the Super Bowl is so interesting to me. I'm looking forward to it. Kendrick Lamar, Super Bowl, and I don't know who else is with him, but he has consistently represented certain symbols and archetypes. I'll release a prediction blog on this issue. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Terrence, Plane Decoded.
Hey, what's up, Plane Decoded?
Hey, did you see that thing I posted in Gilded about Joe Rogan experience with Mel Gibson?
What specifically? Because I'm pretty sure I saw it, but go ahead and remind me.
Okay, you can play it actually. Can you play his podcast for like a brief second on that? I know the exact time code.
I should be able to. In fact, I'll bring it up on my phone, like JL does. That'll be much easier for me, because I did see it.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, it's episode 2254 at an hour and 7 minutes and 33 seconds in. At exactly that time, Mel Gibson says Black Hawk Down. And that's, if you do the math, you can see it on some things, but if you do the math, that leaves an hour and 13 minutes left. So 113.
Fascinating. I did see this comment. So an hour and 13 minutes before the end of the psyop, the end of the episode, Mel Gibson mentions Black Hawk Down. And
but you'll have, like, the time code is 1 hour, 7 minutes and 33 seconds. Somehow he synced it up like perfectly to say that.
Yeah, that's not a coincidence. That can't be a coincidence. I got to find this clip here because I've been talking about Mel Gibson because of his movie Flight Risk. And you saw that
exactly.
thing, right? The Flight Risk poster, if you turn it sideways, it looks like the drill they were doing on the water a couple days before. So I think I'm going to...
Yeah, I saw that image, but I wasn't sure what that was.
I'm scrolling through Gilded. I mean, this has been... You can tell it's been a psyop-rich week because I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
I think you could play that little clip. It's only like a second. At the exact moment I said, so an hour, 7 minutes, and 33 seconds. Just play it, press play and then stop, because then you won't get struck, I don't think.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think I just
That's
got
all, but I'm long distance, so I'll let you go.
Okay, yeah, thanks I'm going to play that clip as soon as I pull it up here, so thank you. Have a great day, and thanks. All right, everyone, thanks for the call. That was Plain Decoded. And he posted a link here to a short clip in the Joe Rogan podcast where at a very unusual time, these very specific timestamps, talking to Mel Gibson, Gibson mentions Black Hawk Down with 1 hour and 13 minutes remaining. Now, again, Mel Gibson is highly connected to all this stuff. And if you've seen any of his recent movies, I think one is called The Wire and this one, you could see how he would be able to be that precise in these orchestrations. He has to be, he's what I would consider to be a metascriptor. So I'm on a new computer. I haven't logged into Gilded. I hate to do that stuff live. So I'm trying to find that clip on my phone. And as soon as I do, I'll play it. And if you want to get into our Gilded, it's IPS.monster. So let me show you what Irrational Exuberance found. This is remarkable. So I mentioned the drill that they were performing before the event. And in my view, this is a indication of it being staged. DC Fire EMS. Opportunity to practice their life-saving skills in frozen tidal basin by the Jefferson Memorial. So here you have them doing this drill. Now look at the image of them on the water. They're on the ice, they're on the water. Next image. I juxtaposed them on the water with the plane. This was originally posted by Irrational Exuberance. So if you turn the flight risk poster horizontal, the falling plane in the poster looks like people standing on the water. It looks like it's the smoke. It looks like it's kind of falling apart. But this falling plane, and it's a small plane, but this whole movie was about this flight. So Flight Risk comes out the 25th. We have all this drama from the skies, and now this. Again, the Flight Risk poster. I was looking at it closely before I watched the movie, trying to determine, what we could discern from it. So you have the one eye stuff. You have the falling plane, which we just saw a plane nosediving in Philly. But then again, just one more time, what do you make of that similarity between the plane falling and people on the water? Visually, they look very similar. And then let's add on to this. Mel Gibson directed Braveheart. So if you look here, Braveheart has his right hand up. Just like Trump, fight, fight, fight. And then you see the Trump avatar, and it has the same design as Mel Gibson in Braveheart. And then 84 days after the shooting, Donald Trump returns to Butler for that, and they do a 1 minute of silence at 6:11, and they refer to him as, quote, Braveheart in the New York Post. And on the day of the event, or the day after, they actually showed this Braveheart pose. I mean, even the flag lines up. But my point here is that this is directed by Mel Gibson. So anytime Mel Gibson was talking to somebody, was he talking to Joe Rogan when his house was burning? So he's connected to the burning house thing and alludes to this helicopter thing. Yeah, phones are open if you want to call in. And I don't have access to that Joe Rogan clip. I've been scrolling through Gilded, but if somebody could repost it for me. and I will play it. But we have Mel Gibson just, quote, randomly throwing it out there. I saw this on the newsstands yesterday. JFK filmed his own death. I was talking about this back in November when Vanity Fair did a story on it. There's a 16-minute video. Jackie Kennedy directed it, where JFK dies. Secret Service are involved. They dump Heinz 57 all over his body. It's fake blood. 9/22/63, 2 months before his assassination. Rilo05 says, okay, so plane didn't crash or what? What does this mean? Yeah, my presupposition when it's totally metascripty, has political agendas attached to it, I'm like, this is a psyop. Nobody died, nobody cried. Now, what does it all mean? That's what we're here for. Why did they 9/11 us? Why did they 3/11 us? Why did they use mass shooters? Why did they fake the moon landing? Well, every one of these has a part in the mind war. I mean, this is all worldview warfare. I call it the psyop entertainment complex, but the entertainment is part of the entrainment process, preparing you to unquestioningly accept all the fake news. So you're not even supposed to be skeptical. But I think they use the entertainment media to kind of dilute your thinking and also create this saturation where it's impossible to not be a part of it, to not see it, to not be a participant in the alternate reality game. And ARGs, alternate reality games, describe what we're in here. You're meant to interact with it. That's why I don't react. That's why I'm saying, I don't know if it's real. I'm going to take a few days to really come to a conclusion. Watch, MSNBC uses Reagan Challenger tragedy address footage to embarrass Trump. So they compare it to the Challenger, somewhat indirectly. Not a coincidence. It's all part of the story that they're telling us. Tanya Harding shows up on Twitter, just randomly. I'm absolutely blown away by the amount of love and support I've received since I joined X. I love you all so much. That's Tanya Harding. That's why I hate the word love. I don't hate it, but when somebody says, when people use the word love, it's like, it's not always a good thing. You have someone like Tanya Harding loving you. Reminds me of that movie Misery. There's this really thin line between love and unhealthy obsession. Okay, continuing, Joe says, smartphones have to be trying to read our brainwaves. Tinfoil hats are to keep things in our head, not keep things out, and our phones might have these advanced receivers like any other wireless signal. Yeah, I've said before that I'm already Neuralinked. I've been Neuralinked for years, and I don't think it requires any hardware. I don't think it requires that at all. Are your thoughts your own? I don't know. Restless Bear had talked to someone. Restless Bear said, I finished my intel collecting mission with my pilot friend. He said, at least internally among American Airlines, he hadn't heard anything beyond condolence stuff. He blamed air traffic control, said they're overworked. He said it's possible the pilots did not see the plane. There's a blind spot he might have missed. There's an alarm thingy that goes on when planes get too close to another craft, but some pilots are trained to ignore it because depending on the craft, it could be too sensitive. Anyway, her point is, it's definitely within the realm of a mistake. It could have just been an error. Okay, I'm not sure why the phone didn't ring, but if you want to try calling back, go ahead. Whenever you have time. Erica Creech says, everything today points to real. New names, politicians, gonna politics, speculation about causes. Well, the thing here is that if it's real, it's not going to perfectly fit and neatly fit into the 24-hour news cycle with these perfectly divided explanations depending on where you are politically. It's a perfect story. And then you add on to it, it's in the movies. I'm going to go watch a movie about planes crashing, and then I'm going to go watch the news, and planes are going to crash. Plane crash in northeast Philadelphia leaves multiple houses on fire, causes explosion. It's well within the realm of fakeability. And if you're saying that it's real, you need to ask yourself, why do I believe it's real? Am I trusting CNN this time? Am I trusting the pathologically lying, news-bent, biased, government-controlled media on this one incident because it has some emotional resonance to me? Like, no, it's fake until proven real if there's any indicators of hoax, and there are just way too many indicators of hoaxery here. So my heart doesn't, like people say, well, my heart goes out to the victims. My heart doesn't go out to simulation training dolls. Not at all. Kevin Mooring says, leave the world behind. Yes. Yeah, leave the world behind. And that's also significant because leave the world behind would be related to the theme of the drill that the Black Hawk was doing. You know, the continuity of government doomsday drill. So that alone, to me, also suggests hoax. Like they're doing a drill and then something happens. They're rehearsing something and then something like, no, that's not really how it works. Okay, we got the link to Mel Gibson. Yeah, I want to make it a point to look into these metascriptors on a case-to-case basis. And Mel Gibson was the subject of our conversation about a week ago because we were talking about The Patriot. So the movie The Patriot has an opening scene before the invaders take over where he's making a rocking chair and he weighs the rocking chair. He says 9 pounds, 11 ounces. And then he sits on it. And everybody around him looks at it and looks at him, expecting it like they're scared it's going to fall. So they're watching him sitting on the chair after he says 9/11. A few seconds later, you see the two hind legs and it collapses. So that seems like some typical 9/11 foreshadowing. Then the bad guys invade and he reluctantly has to go to war. And that was, again, The Patriot. Just one such example, and that came out in the year 2000. So let me play this clip here. This is Mel Gibson on the Joe Rogan Show.
In Tennessee, and you think Tennessee, what's going to happen there? It's going to be squeal like a pig. No. Man, there's some people live in Tennessee. Sure. But like amazing people. And I found myself in a conversation with 4 tier 1 dudes, all of who did something extraordinary. And it was that Tom Slattersley guy. It was the Black Hawk Down guy. There was Sean Ryan, you probably heard of this guy.
Friend of his.
Yeah, right? Yeah. There was...
So this was, his last appearance a few weeks ago. Mel Gibson making reference to Black Hawk Down. Very interesting. His house burns down. He's connected to this psyop indirectly here. Patriot, Braveheart, and then, of course, Braveheart. And so in addition to the Braveheart stuff, he did Passion of the Christ with Jim Caviezel. I spell it with a Q because he pushes all the Q stuff with this. But Jim Caviezel was 33 when he played Jesus, and he died on the movie set, and they brought him back to life. If you didn't know, it's because they didn't record it for some reason, or they didn't release the footage. But they said they were recording the scene for the Sermon on the Mount. And on the 5th take, God sent a lightning bolt and killed Jim Caviezel, and they brought him back to life. Jim Caviezel then became the face of the Q movement for the whole Sound of Freedom movie about human trafficking, and he played the role of Tim Ballard, who ironically was revealed to be a human trafficker. He was actually trafficking women to these sites where they were stopping human trafficking in order to be alone with them, to be a creep. Tim Ballard, who was basically held up as this, paragon of purity and fighting the deep state and the dark side, and no, he's just a perv. The Sound of Perv. And that whole movie was just disgusting. And the people who fetishize it, like, oh, we're fighting the deep state, we're saving the children by tweeting. It's like, no, you guys haven't saved anything. The Q movement has this, like, fake martyr, this idea of, like, these martyrs they're saving, but it's all fake. It's a totally bogus movement. All right, continuing here. Gondola Wish says, I see an unhinged idiot that has been on hiatus has decided to return to the YouTube chat room with his mental illness. He's probably blocked because I haven't seen any unhinged idiots in the chat room. All right, let's move on. We're talking about the mushroom cloud. Okay, this is good. This was a very popular tweet yesterday. A photo that shows a square structure on Mars. This is posted on Reddit. It is, quote, indeed real. This comes from the MOC, the Mars Orbiter Camera. And the original image here, as you're looking at, is well, I guess it's supposed to be an image of some kind of natural rock formation, but it looks like a square. It looks like the top of a building. So this has been going around. David Icke says this image is circulating from Mars. Whistleblowers told me decades ago that there are human-alien interface bases under Mars, and the travel required to get to them is a technology that makes Musk's rockets look like Stone Age. This is, again, from David Icke. He says, rockets in general are irrelevant as a way of traversing space. So there's a lot of talk about this. Joe Rogan said his mind was blown. He's constantly having his mind blown. It can't be healthy, because it turns out that this is Photoshop. It's not as bad as the space salami, but it's the same thing. You know, you have people who are like Soy Jack, that meme where the guy's pointing with his jaw dropped at something behind him. People are just drooling over the square on Mars. It's blowing people's minds, and it's like, no, it's fake. Like, that's Joe. Actually, here's what Joe Rogan said. This is effing wild. Photo from a square structure on Mars posted to Reddit. Quote, it is indeed real. And it comes from the Mars Orbiter Camera, or the MOC. So this is wild? No, it's not wild. You should be disbelieving by default. If you're not by this point, then you might as well be in a simulation. Till5683 said, the second airplane crash has happened. This is the reason for the new airport airplane movies. Wouldn't be surprised if Tesla cars and cargo ships are next. Kind of like the movie the Obamas produced. This is interesting. He says 2025 Fallout or Nothing Burger. Yeah, I think 2025 is the year of the nuke and Fallout. We're getting prepared for this. That's why they did the drills. So this is all a lead up. Very good points here. And there's another movie. I think it was called Carry On. So we have Carry On and Flight Risk, Homestead. And as I often say, if you want to know what's going to happen in the news tomorrow, go watch the movies, watch Netflix. Okay, let's continue. So all these plane crashes, though, what is up with it? Says Lucid Stream. That's what we're asking here. What is the agenda behind it? For the one, there's the political side. There's the Trump fired people from the TSA, the FAA. Musk and Trump caused this because they're anti-government. So you can see the bipartisan interpretation where this suits the left, who need reasons to rile their base up against the fascists. That's kind of how they're framing this. And so this is obviously being blamed on them. And then they're making these attempts to blame it on DEI, which is absurd. John McAfee, who returned to Twitter to push really bad crypto coins, I think meme coins or something. But anyway, back from the dead, or this might be an old interview. I'm not even sure if he is dead, but this is something that he said about AI. He said that AI is like inviting Satan into your house and begging to sign a contract in exchange for your soul. Okay, let's play this short clip. I don't know why there's such an obsession with John McAfee. The nonners think that he's the guy that caught the deep state, that he hacked everybody's computers.
I want to get your thoughts on artificial intelligence. Do you fear AI as Elon Musk fears AI?
I think I fear AI far more than Elon could ever fear it, because I am far older than him and I have much more experience.
Now, didn't John McAfee work on Apollo 11? Now that I think about it, I'm starting to look at this guy a little closer. I'm pretty sure that he might, yes, he was a programmer for the Apollo program. So what does that tell you? So let's just go over really quick today's IPR points of interest. Metascript view of the two crashes square on Mars. So the square on Mars should tell you auto-hoax, Axiom 57, disbelieve by default. Crash victim predictive programming. This is another one. DC plane crash victim Elizabeth Keys and the logo for the Rheingeist Brewery, which means ghost of the Rhine, which is a river. And of course, she died in a crash over a river not far from the Francis Scott Key Bridge, where others also died in a river. This is from Synchro Morpheus. The Rheingeist wiki page features a drink called Crash. So here's one of the crash victims. Is she the one who was 33? Like, lock up the 33-year-olds for their own good and for the good of society. They tend to start major revolutions, cults, wars, all kinds of things. I should do a deep dive on all the significant 33-year-olds, and you'll agree with me. You got the QAnon shaman, Charles Manson got his start at that age, Jesus, Martin Luther, Timothy McVeigh. Just ridiculous when you look at these various historic personages and that specific number. But this is notable. She's wearing a shirt that has a beer called Crash. Ghost of the Rhine. Ghost of the River. So again, this is one thing to consider too. Whenever you're shown photos of the actors, look at it through the lens of a director. Like, a director will always foreshadow. If they put a prop in the movie, it's going to show up later. None of these pictures are accidental. This is how I was able to make accurate predictions based on the shirt worn by Henderson Solomon, the school shooter, the black white supremacist shooter, had a Burzum shirt. And I said, this is going to bring Kanye West into the story. White Lives Matter, Candace Owens. And sure enough, Kanye West, Candace Owens are in his manifesto, and they inspired him. But I was able to extrapolate all of that from the letters ZUM in a font I recognized. I should not have been able to have predicted what was on this person's manifesto based on his t-shirt. But since I know I'm looking at a fictional character in a fictional universe, it was very easy to do so. And previous to that, I had talked about the other shooter, Natalie Rupno, who had the KMFDM shirt. And I said, that's a shout out to the Littleton shooters. Well, this shooter, Henderson Solomon, wore a similar shirt to the KMFDM shirt and mimicked her posture. They knew each other over tweets or something. Or probably Discord. All right, let's continue. Just going through my notes for today. A Black Hawk in DC plane crash was practicing top secret continuity of government mission in case of attack on U.S. So they're doing a top secret continuity of mission, a government mission, a COG mission, a drill. They're doing a drill. You know how many people were doing drills on 9/11 where they were pretending like planes were crashing into buildings when it happened? And they had to be told, oh no, actually it's real now. It was a drill, but now it's real. And it's happening just like the drill. Like, that doesn't raise red flags. We have so many examples. You know, I'd mentioned Brenton Tarrant, the Christchurch shooter. And if you look at that whole event, he was captured during a pit maneuver executed by the police. This is when they run the car off the road and drag the driver out the window and cuff him. Well, the officers that were credited with having apprehended the shooter were doing drills that day in full uniform for doing exactly that. They were doing drills for pit maneuvers. So they went from, hey, let's do a drill and practice running someone off the road, and then they do it for real. They called it an eerie coincidence. They were bomb drills going on that day. Eerie coincidences. Jay Nelson says, Tim is psychic. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I essentially predicted Musk in his present form, the CEO shooting, and stuff falling from the sky. Yeah, of course. I mean, this is what they actually mention this in Leave the World Behind. There's a chapter, because it's divided into sections, like part 1, the house, part 2, the curve, part 3, the flood or something. The curve. They're talking about this thing called the curve. And it refers to knowing how to read the trends by reading the subtext. And I think that was an allusion to this. Interestingly, the author of the book, Leave the World Behind, said his book was prescient, that people said he was psychic, because his book perfectly described 2020 and the lockdowns. And then his book turns into a movie produced by the Obamas. FF says, isn't it clear the psyop entertainment complex will fake a hoax nuke during the Trump time? It's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And I have reasons to think it's this year. I think it's this year, 2025. And I think so because of Christopher Nolan's work in Oppenheimer, in Batman, and foreshadowing, and Fallout. And Fallout 2 was delayed because of the LA fires. Because the fires went nuclear. We have something here. Alex Jones talked about this, how these, and someone in the comments mentioned this, how these Blackhawks can indeed be remote controlled. So okay, I can already tell, I haven't even listened to him. Alex Jones's take will be, there were some kind of hackers involved and they took control of it and killed innocent people. Breaking update, evidence indicates the backdoor remote control tech was used to ensure tragic helicopter airliner crash in DC. This is the conspiracy theory take. It was real, but it wasn't the way the mainstream media happened. That's their typical approach. This is gatekeeping. Sleeper agents, remote controls. But I think that it's certain that this event was conducted with remote control, with dummies, that this is entirely a psyop. Blackhawk was conducting doomsday drills. The one article that I linked to has a few pull quotes here. The doomed military helicopter that collided with the American Airlines flight over DC Wednesday night was conducting training to prepare for a catastrophic event or an attack on the U.S. The crew aboard the UH-60 Blackhawk, 12th Aviation Division, is responsible for top secret evacuation missions meant to whisk top U.S. officials from DC to secure locations in the case of nuclear attack, national emergencies. In a press conference, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the soldiers were, quote, on a routine annual retraining night flights on a standard corridor for continuity of government missions. Just a drill. Again, next week, Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles. Many who are looking at this at the level we are, at the metascript story narrative level, are correlating this recent spate of plane crashes with the Eagles. The plane coming from Wichita, Kansas. So, and the thing is, Kansas City Chiefs has some significance to this story if you look at the idea of the broken arrow. And we alluded to this recently, but last year in particular, we were waiting for the Super Bowl and we were talking about the broken arrow because of all the goddess symbolism. Diana, Artemis, the Artemis mission, which was a mission delayed because of a crack. It was an actual crack in the rocket. And I said, that's like a broken arrow. Well, broken arrow in military terminology refers to, quote, unexpected events involving nuclear weapons that result in accidental launchings, detonation, or loss of the weapon. Since 1950, there have been 32 nuclear weapon accidents known as broken arrows. So when the Chiefs were there last year in the Super Bowl, we were talking about this and the arrowhead, and I was suggesting that they're preparing us for the 33rd broken arrow. Okay, I found out why the phone didn't answer. So P-Trip, if you want to call back, it's because I had 2 instances of the Google phone open. My bad. I have a book on Amazon right now, and if I can find my original manuscript, I want to do a rewrite and add to it. Metascript Decoded, The Great Reset, World Revolution, The Age of Mars. And here's Lee Harvey Oswald. And I was more or less foreshadowing the emergence of the next Oswald, which has come to pass since this book came out. But again, they compared the LA fires to Hiroshima, Homestead, post-nuke apocalypse LA, Philadelphia plane crash, dramatic mushroom cloud, flight risk came out the same week, hijacked small plane. And I said, this is the week for aerial immolations, fiery sacrifices in the air, like Kobe or the Challenger. The AA flight hitting the copter was compared to the Challenger explosion by way of humiliating Trump. And this is also Reagan National Airport. So you got Reagan National Airport, Reagan's comments, Challenger, something's up here. As Mark Twain says, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Gondola Wish says the ritual is Super Bowl related, connected to the plane. You know, there was something that Zachary Hubbard, Joshua Green, whatever his name was always talking about how after 9/11, you had the Patriots fighting the New York Jets, and they got this win, and it was great for morale. But the storyline, 9/11, you know, the Patriots, the Jets, New York. I mean, the sports are scripted. I don't know about play-by-play. I mean, how fakeable is that? But the general story, the presentation, it's been hijacked for propaganda purposes, just as video games, just as all the movies. It'd be silly to think that these big sports entertainment companies aren't controlled by the government for the purposes of brainwashing people. It's probably deepest there. I talked to someone once who was very versed in hypnosis, and she was convinced that countdown clocks, you know, on every game, hockey, football, basketball, that when people are seeing the numbers and they're counting down, she's convinced that this is a form of hypnotic induction, putting people into trance states to make them susceptible to programming. I don't disagree with that. By the way, the IPS Insider number 2 is in production. Issue 1 has already been ordered, and it will arrive next week. And there were people who ordered it before. This is supposed to come out in September. I'm going to fulfill those orders first, and the remaining copies will then go on sale. So you'll find out first here. Issue 2 will be released immediately after the Super Bowl. I want to watch the Super Bowl and cover whatever psyops or rituals they perform and put it into issue number 2. It's meant to be a monthly. There were some delays, but that's just kind of how it is. But it's fine. I'm ordering them. Actually, I placed the order last night, so I expect them on Monday or Tuesday. And once I have the back orders sent, I'll make it available and I'll blast it. So you want to be on the newsletter because it's pretty much first come, first serve. I only have a limited number of copies. I'm going to try to order more, and I will do back orders. But this is just like the first run of issue 1, so I only had enough for 50. But if they all sell, that'll cover issue 2 and part of 3. So it looks like it's going to roll forward pretty effectively. I'm ready to publish number 2, but I want to wait for the Super Bowl. And if anyone wants to send articles, art, promote a podcast, just let me know. You can contact me through IPS.monster. There's some links there. And another thing, IPS now has a P.O. box. You can send art for the wall behind me. You can send letters for me to read live. You can send hate mail. You can send wrenches. But the address is on the main site, Infinite Plane Media, P.O. Box 21031, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87154. It's going to be the address I'm going to use for all correspondence with my IPR reporters. And once I have the insider in distribution, I'm going to release new press passes, updated press passes. I could have released it in September, but to me, because of the budget, I didn't have the budget for it. I would have had to have cut it down from 30 pages to like 12, and I wasn't willing to truncate it like that. Ryler05 says, Mark said history repeats itself, first as tragedy, second as farce. Well, I coined the phrase metascript, or appropriated it for this in 2020, because I was realizing that there are so many correlations between 1968 and 2020 that it was unignorable. You know, the term coronavirus was coined in 1968. You had this massive pandemic in China in 68, and then you had the civil rights parallels between 2020 and 68. Even the rhetoric. You know, Trump says when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That came right out of the segregationists, late 60s. But I was noticing how many of the major stories from 1968 in particular were superimposed onto 2020. And so I mapped it out. And then I said, if this is not a fluke, we're going to see the same thing. 2021, it's going to mirror 1969. And it weirdly did. On the anniversary of Apollo 11, for example, Bezos went to space. You had the billionaire space race. But you also had, for example, the anniversary of the Charlie Manson killing. You had this QAnoner stabbing his kid 17 times. And just these stories that seem to be echoes, because at the time they were comparing the QAnon movement to a far-right, kind of a new hippie, this anti-establishment hippie movement, but deranged. And comparisons were made. But I was noticing these connections, and it was like even the movies set in these specific years had relations to what was happening at this more recent time. So I was like, at that point, recognizing that it's true that history rhymes, but it's by design. They're recycling certain scripts, like the Roe v. Wade leak, for example. These stories happen like on anniversaries. It's ridiculous, but it makes sense. What we're seeing, it generally makes sense, but this is where people get led astray, and they're just like, they're so baffled by it. They're like, oh, this has to be a simulation. It's like, oh, no, it doesn't have to be a simulation. We're talking about a news-bent reality. I've identified script writers who are participating. Government propaganda. Government has co-opted literally everything. And when I say government, I don't mean the U.S. government. I'm suggesting that there is only one government, one monolithic control structure, and it's mind war primarily. It's its primary function. Government's a subset of mind control. But yes, humanity is controlled collectively by a monolithic, it's like a new monotheism, but a monolithic centralized control system that really seems to be designed to maintain this constant state of friction and war between factions so that nobody ever notices that the controls are being exerted from above and covertly. I mean, none of the conspiracy theorists have figured this out. Conspiracy theorists believe everything. They just have an alternative story. Look at Jones. Alex Jones has been doing this for decades, and he says somebody hacked into the helicopter to make this happen. You wouldn't have any information to give you that conclusion, but starting with the presumption that it happened and it was a tragedy means that you're already in the mainstream box. It's not skepticism at the appropriate level that we implement here, where I'm like, is it even real? That should be your first question. But conspiracy theorists don't ask that. Obrique says, repeating Noah's flood. Oh yes, every single aspect of the modern paradigm is templated off something archaic. Space is the new heaven. Noah's flood is Noah's flood. Their emblem being the bird, the dove. I mean, this is just repetition, but they recycle stuff on a big level, and then even on these, almost like, I don't know how they time it. I mean, maybe it's astrological. But if you haven't seen Newsbenders, I recommend it. It's a 30-minute play, and it's about this news agency called it's like the World News Services, and they go to every single news agency, and they infiltrate, and their job is to write the news, plan the news 5 years in advance. And that's not really that strange of a proposition to say they write the news in advance, they're faking our news. We know they fake news. It's just the degree to which they fake it is what is underestimated, underappreciated. And the consequences of fake news. So we have these two fake crashes. Well, these become the dominant stories. And it leads the news cycles. Whether it's blaming the anti-government type or blaming DEI, it leads the broader news narratives for the coming days, weeks, however long they can track it out. We went from drones, actually CEO getting assassinated, to drones, to fires, and now we're in this new terrain of planes falling. But the fake events drive the bigger, wider news narrative. So not everyone has to be in on the fakery. They just have to act like it's real. And if you're living as though it's real, you're in an alternate reality game. That's what the world stage is. Ryler says, too many Christians in the truth movement. That's one problem. Yeah, that's an interesting statement. I would argue too that the internet has its own type of Christianity. It's not monolithic, but truthers who are considered Christians or who announce themselves, they proclaim themselves Christians, aren't really the church-going type. They're more like internet Christians, and I kind of think they're a controlled opposition. They fall prey to things like the Pizzagate, QAnon. They fall prey to this stuff because it's part of the moral panic built into their worldview. And this is another one of the divisions. You know, left is responsive to the pandemic, and they believe in its cure because their religion is scientism. And scientism has replaced the archaic concept of sin with the virus. And so it's not a coincidence that the left adheres to this and the right rejects it. But what does the right have? They don't have a fear of pandemics, but they do have moral panics, panicdemics. And the moral panics are what unite them against the left. And it's a perfectly divided system, and it has to do with keeping this tug of war between the progressive utopian future and the idealized past, which is what MAGA represents. You know, MAGA and its exponents, they're all about reversing feminism and civil rights. They want to move back, make America great again. Refers to the idea that it used to be better. It was ideal in the past. So you have the traditional religions still believing in Satan, and they want to program truthers to believe in Satan and satanic panics, so they can see the left as, you know, Satan, and science is Satan's religion. This is a collision between two worldviews, but they've designed it this way. That's why the left wing loves aliens, illegal or extraterrestrial, and the right wing hates aliens because they think aliens are demons, and they think aliens will come kill them and take their jobs. They're threatened by aliens, terrestrial and extraterrestrial. That's all by design. I don't fit in these boxes, but I noticed the compartmentalization. And if you're compartmentalized, you're mind controlled. And it's sad in a way. I mean, someone gives you one opinion, then you can pretty much ascertain all their other opinions based on belief clusters. Oh, you believe this, so you're also going to believe this. Oh, you're against this, so then you're pro this. We shouldn't be robots like this. Yeah, tomorrow is Groundhog Day, 33rd day of the year. Tim and Vic says, I'm late to the party, but I saw flyover footage where the authorities said a plane crashed in Philly, saw no evidence of a plane having crashed. Shanksville meets the Pentagon. You know what I did see? I did see somebody walking around burning, and I saw a severed leg. And I had a link to a website where you can buy spare parts for drill purposes. You can buy legs, you can buy arms, you can buy bodies that have been cut in half by shrapnel, and they all look super real. So I kind of got Boston Marathon vibes, where they throw out the body parts, set the cars on fire in this pre-planned way. But as far as the plane hitting and all that, there are a number of ways that could be performed. Pyrotechnics. I mean, it doesn't have to be CGI. Again, I don't think it's real because I don't have enough information. If you think it's real and you're mad at me because I don't, then your argument is from the authority of the screen. You're like, I believe the TV really hard and you don't, so that makes you bad. How dare you? And I'm like, well, no, you're completely mind controlled and you're unobjective and you're non-skeptical. And I don't trust the news media to regulate or dysregulate my emotions by getting caught up in all these various fake stories. But I did think Shanksville makes sense. And Shanksville is where the plane was being hijacked by somebody with a shank. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, B-Triple clocking in for a quick call on the plane crash in DC.
Yeah, what's your take on the DC plane crash?
Yeah, all right, really quick. Well, I'm at work too, but I just wanted to sneak in a couple comments and a question about that. The initial take that I had for this event, I used to live in DC, and I was like, all right, I'll check out the video, see what it's all about. And I haven't been in Gilded or Discord or anything, so I don't know what the other people are talking about. But I'm actually of based on what I can see, right? Um, I think I think in this case it's 100% fake, and the reason why I'm kind of saying that, kind of claiming that right now, is I want to ask everyone here to review whatever plane crash footage they've seen, and imagine for a moment when you're watching this that this was filmed in the absolute most perfect, best, like video, like any kind of photography equipment was used. It was the best, right? It was filmed at like 8K or 16K, and 60 frames per second, whatever, and then downgraded to look like pixel shit. Like they literally they can edit it very well when it's like high grade photography kind of stuff. It's very easy, especially with AI and all that stuff. This is a very simple white pill kind of psyop event that we can just look at. There's no audio, right? Because it's always, every footage that we have is like stationary cameras. And look, I encourage you or anyone listening to rewatch the helicopter very closely as it crashes into the water, and you'll notice that the pixels they like disappear and go away and then come back like very it's very noticeable that this was either made or edited, like, so I just want people to look at that way. And then also the people on the plane, there's 6 people from Boston supposedly. I had to also take a look at their photos that they had posted, like all whatever 20 or 30 people or 60 people. There was a bunch, but I think the popular one was like all the figure skater photos. Half of them are like, they're not even good. Like they couldn't find good photos. So I think they were just stock photos from thesepeopledoNotExist.com from back in the day. So I don't know, Tim. I mean, I know sometimes I call in and I say like, it's like 50-50, like, they have to do, but this is perfect. The planes or aircrafts crashed into the water. No one else can see the wreckage, right? Except like specially licensed people to dive and seek through the wreckage, supposedly. So
Yeah,
that's all we have.
okay.
There's no proof. It's like one of those instances where none of us can fact check on our own, for real. We can't just go to the crash site and just verify for ourselves. Do you see where
Correct.
I'm going with this? Like, it has to
Absolutely.
be
Absolutely.
fake.
And then consider the number of drills that were being performed, specifically rescuing people in the water, but also the nuclear incident drills. And the fact that the chopper was doing a drill for a doomsday continuity of government evacuation. So they had all the cover they needed to fake it any way they wanted to.
Exactly. And that's all the stuff that you just listed is all that's the level of truther, like the way the truthers see it. Like there's another additional piece of information where around the internet that people were saying a month or two ago or last year, Boeing or whomever makes the Black Hawk, I should know this too, now makes drone versions of the Black Hawk. And I've just, it's like, duh, like who cares? Like that, it's just such like, oh, it's like a news top secret. Yeah, I love how people, especially when it comes to the assassination stuff or anything, and any of the truther people say it's like, oh, this is top secret information, but I'm going to post it public online. And like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so lame. And I'm just like, you know what? That is a tell. That's a tell. And the visuals are a tell. This is clearly a mode of communication, an intentional mode of communication. Now, I don't know what it is, but I think it has something to do with like runway 33. You've talked about that and like all that stuff. So I haven't done enough of a deep dive, but I think there's enough on the surface level to understand that this is completely fake. And normally I don't fall prey to that, and I know that sounds weird for me to say it that way, but this is one of those instances. Maybe I just have a different perspective now, but just the way it's being reported is very 100% fake. So
agreed. Well, and I appreciate your comments here, and I tend to agree. And at this point, in 2025, given the fakeability of everything and the scale of fakery, I think we'd be letting our guard down to say, well, maybe they're going to suddenly be truthful, and they're going to no, that wouldn't happen that way. And I think the celebrity endorsements also give these things away, like Nancy Kerrigan crying on TV. To me, that's meant to go viral, and it's meant to draw attention to the victims. So if you assume victims, then you're in a different place than somebody who hasn't even arrived at the conclusion it was real. So they really try to force the victim narrative in there. And that's why I look at the victims skeptically. And did you see that? I posted earlier, one of them had a shirt on, a sweater, that had an ad for a brewery called like Rheingeist, Ghost of the River. And the flavor is called Crash. Like, it's a joke. These are inside jokes, if you ask me.
Well, they certainly called up Nancy Kerrigan and whomever. There's a bunch of other stuff. Really, it's like they called in all the actors, to like cry and stuff like that for this one. And I don't know, when they interviewed some of like the friends of some of the people on the plane, like they were like in such disbelief that they weren't even like sad or whatever. I was just like, what? This is so fake that I don't even understand why they're even doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're not even trying, and that kind of bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, Isabel Ann in the comments had mentioned this. She said zero emotion. Like, there was a husband who was told about this, and they're interviewing him. Zero emotion.
Yeah.
And I think this is a crisis actor who is meant to just bring it and commit to it and just burst out crying, and he couldn't do it. But it didn't look real. And from my experience around bereaved people, I work death care profession, and it's just like, even if you're expecting a death, people cry. People have emotions. They don't just sit there. And people in the comments are saying, oh, this person was in shock. People mourn differently. Some people just laugh when tragedies happen. And I'm like, no, I don't buy it. That's not a human response to something that's real.
Well, I couldn't even imagine talking to a camera. Like, the point is, I guess the point is anyone going to, it's kind of like the other thing about a week ago with, what's her name? What's the actress or singer, Gomez? That was crying.
Yes, Selena Gomez.
Like, it was like that stuff. Like,
yes.
Okay, why are you filming this? Like, it doesn't make, like, it's just, who cares? So, I think for us, we have to kind of really be mindful of, like everything that's going on. There's so much propaganda that it's really, sometimes it's tough to sift through it all. But I think after, like, let's say 4 or 5 years of IPS training, I think like this is like one really good event as an example to kind of bookmark and just say, all right, look at these photos of these like people on the plane, and then look at this video of the plane and the Black Hawk, like how they crashed and how it looks to you. Does it look real? Like cameras today, like I bought cameras for my property, and it's like they're like in 1080p, whatever. They're like super high res, and like I just don't understand why every single time, especially now, like we always receive video footage in 2025, no less, when we have so much AI capabilities that these little videos look like dog crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so pixelated.
It's
like, you've got to be kidding me.
It's got to be a tactic.
So fake.
Like there was that truck attack recently, and the only video you have is somebody walking through the scene with a flip phone from like 2015 or something, and it's blurry. And they don't focus on any one victim long enough for a trained eye to notice it's a training doll. But they just walk through, they swing the camera by, and I'm like, well, that's not stopping to check pulses, not offering any help, and it's too blurry to be useful for any documentary purposes. So I think that that's a tactic. Keep it blurry, keep it vague, and let people's imagination do the work. And it's easy to imagine a plane nosediving after you just watched Flight Risk that came out the day before.
One other thing that I forgot to mention to you, there was a comment, a bunch of comments, and then a question. So I should be asking you a question too, because I really want to hear it. All right. The last thing is the box, the black box. And that's the tell that I think too, because whenever there's a plane crash, they always say, okay, where's the black box? Now, why do I know that that's a tell? Is because every time there's a school shooting, they the shooter or whatever, the assassin of Trump, or everyone always has to have, what do you think, Tim? Always has to have at the very end a
manifesto.
Exactly. That's what I'm fucking talking about. It's like, and we're expecting it. And, you know, what about those situations where it shouldn't be? Like, why don't they pepper in the circumstances where it's just absolutely destroyed? There is no manifesto. We don't know why this person, you know, I don't know if like our FBI agents are listening in on this call, but like, come on, guys, like, get a better director for these. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, all right. So
Yeah.
my question, all right.
Sure, the DHS should hire.
Yeah.
The DHS should hire the IPS think tank. We could improve them. We really could.
We really could. All right. All right. So my normal question is, in this particular situation, what is the type of communication that this particular event is trying to convey to not just people, but to like the people who need to know?
Right.
And I think I have an answer, but I mean, I was hoping, you know, you might. I haven't been on the Discord or Gilded as often, but I mean, have you come to some conclusions as to why this is happening now? That kind, that kind of thing. Like, I don't know
Sure.
if you thought about it,
Yeah, my thinking is they're preparing us to believe when they execute the big nuke. And I say this because the Los Angeles fires, concurrent predictive programming involving a nuke, it was compared to that. And then the mushroom cloud in Philly, continuity of government drills gone amok with this particular crash with the Reagan National Airport. So I kind of think that we're being prepared for something big and that this is a buildup. What do you think?
So yes, this is like my final thought. I wanted to hear what you thought about that. And so my perspective here is they're using the anything in the air, just in general. Like, sure, actually your theory about the nukes, that actually kind of fits with it a little bit, or just like at least like the idea that it could happen and it will happen, or something. I don't know. But just the drones, the planes, it's like, remember that like Leonardo DiCaprio movie, like just being afraid of the sky, that kind of thing, like wearing our helmets, like watching out for stuff that's debris falling from the sky, like that kind of thing. I think that's what they are intending us to be like. All right, yeah, sure, it matches up on the dates every year around this date. You know, you have the Challenger explosion, all this stuff, sure. But to be afraid of the sky, or to be like, that's the risk-taking venture, or like going to Mars, like that's dangerous, like people could die, and that kind of thing. So I think that might be something to think about. And I wish I could word it a little bit better, Tim, but I just wanted to call in about those things. And like, you know, I think, you know, sometimes it's better when we do the audio chats, you know, I can
I think you're onto something. I think
this is your time. So.
I think you're onto something, because recently we had Elon Musk's space junk causing planes to divert, and then Musk is being blamed for this. A lot of it is political, getting people to blame those who are anti-government, and then the anti-government blame the people who are pro-government. And so there's all kinds of agenda attached to it, but generally our zeitgeist is increasingly being defined by sky phobia, whether it's climate change, weather weapons, or space junk, space wars, asteroids. But planes falling from the sky, very much, I think, part of the buildup towards what I think will be the next lockdown excuse, which will be fallout. Because you can't separate nuclear incidents from this, because the Black Hawk chopper was doing a drill in case of a nuclear incident, some kind of an attack on America, necessitating the evacuation of very important personnel. So I think this is a buildup for something.
But it will be fake, is what we're trying to convey here. Is like, yeah, sure, they'll have this massive event, but we'll essentially be in the know. Like we know that this stuff is fake anyways.
That's the thing is, if it was real, they wouldn't need to do predictive programming. They wouldn't need to build us up with expectations, post-hypnotic suggestions. They wouldn't need to put things in our frame of reference and put us in an echo chamber to believe it. But since they're going to have, since they're faking it, they have to build it up. But if it were real, they could just drop it, blow something up, and then watch us respond predictably. But no, the fact is, the predictive programming 100% of the time is followed up with something fake. It never predicts the real, and that's a truism.
Well, thank you, Tim. I think that I said a few things that I was hoping to sneak in there, and I appreciate you taking my call, and I'll listen in for the rest of the show.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for the call, P. Trippa, and call back anytime.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Kevin Mooring says Donnie Darko planes falling. Yeah, okay, Donnie Darko is Donald Trump in the subtext, but Donnie Darko, the movie, had predictive programming elements for 9/11. Movie posters were changed because it looked like Arabic script, plane parts falling. Leave the World Behind, which we were referencing, has a character named Rose, who they call Donnie Darko because she's so weird and morose. So you have this Donnie Darko connection there as well. But the Donnie Darko movie constantly references the symbol of the corona and the end of the world. Infinite Plane Radio.
Great show tonight, Tim. This is Echo Charlie.
Hey, thank you for calling back. I saw you trying to get through.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on P. Trippa asking at the end what he thought the message was from this event, which he called fake, but I'm still thinking it might be real, more and more, as a matter of fact. But the messaging, I think, was Trump won the election, and he wants to give the people that elected him for DEI rollback kind of a platform to discuss DEI. That's going to be a big part of this, either in the air traffic control room or in the pilots or something, that the systems are like people that are real technical and want things done, with redundancy and excellence, have not been happy with how the society has been running the last few years. And they elected Trump, and now we've got this little DEI story. So that's what I think the script is about.
It's certainly the case that last year it was all about Boeing and planes falling from the sky, doors falling off, and Boeing was looked at as falling apart. And they said that Boeing is the poster child for crony capitalism. So they were making an attack against capitalism, greed, and how it makes everybody unsafe. And then they added on to that DEI stuff. So that became the talking point for all the falling plane parts. They made fun of Boeing in that Fly Me to the Moon movie. So that's been a reoccurring theme. And then Boeing got embarrassed because they can't rescue those astronauts. They have to send Elon Musk and SpaceX. So I do see the planes falling as part of a continuation of that story. And I'm noticing that
it's new for the Trump people. Like, Trump just won. So now we get a different story. To me, it's not exactly a continuation. It's going to be people that are bold, going to feel more emboldened to speak about hirings and, competence.
Right.
Which we all maybe have stories in our personal lives, and we're wondering if it was ever going to become even more tragic, you see. Like, it's not just a matter of not getting good service at McDonald's or wherever. It's all across.
This is interesting. Girl says the only choice is between AI and DEI. That's an interesting juxtaposition there, because that does seem to be the case.
Yeah. So the Hegelian, they're going to move it all the way over to those two choices. Okay, I'll get off the phone.
Okay, well,
Thanks for taking my call.
Maybe we need to get rid of human pilots altogether. There were so many drive-thrus here where it's all AI, and it's like, well, they're actually better. Anyway, thank you for the call, Echo Charlie. Call back anytime.
Okay.
All right. Going through your comments here. And that's actually very astute there. DEI versus AI. Two different ways of looking at things. And the DEI die thing is a canard. It kind of misrepresents the issue, but the issue is fundamental here. Because the basis for the criticism, the critical race theory, and the criticism of America and the West is that they're not inclusive, they're not diverse, they're not equal, and therefore it needs to be changed. There needs to be a revolution. And so this is just another politicized psyop scene, another psyop movie. Somebody had said Black Hawk Down came out on 10/28. That's interesting. RR said, are you saying there was no plane crash? When I hear questions like that, are you saying this was fake? I have to respond with, are you saying it was real? Because the burden of proof is on the media. If they haven't met that burden, then there's no way that someone who believes the news has that burden of proof. So if you're saying to me or asking me, are you saying that it was fake? I'm actually returning, my response is actually a question to you. Are you saying it's real? Because logically speaking, the burden of proof is not mine. And the media's job is to provide information and facts to substantiate their claims. If they can't do it, I'm under no obligation to believe it. And unless you have some special knowledge here that would lead us to think it was real, I'm defaulting to fake, especially when it has hallmarks of fakery, including concurrent drills, predictive programming, stuff in the movies, ready-made political agendas that are perfect for the left or the right, depending on your political predilections. You can choose your own version. Now here's a conspiracy theory. Michael Graham tweeted, word around the airport that I work at is saying that Trump's business jet was landing a few planes behind the one that the Army Black Hawk hit, and it may have been aiming for Trump's family on the Trump jet. I don't believe that one. Somebody else noticed that the medical Learjet that was the one that went down in Philly had a marker on it, aircraft XAUCI, which they said is close to Fauci, medical jet Fauci, maybe some subtext. War News said, this was my first thought after seeing the Black Hawk helicopter fly into the American Airlines jet. And this person posted a video of the Dolly cargo ship hitting the Francis Scott Key Bridge. A couple of connections here, many connections here. But this particular incident happened at 1:28 a.m. 12:08, Leave the World Behind comes out. Lots of connections with that particular number, but there is some other correlations here as well. Again, Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem. And if you haven't seen Leave the World Behind, it's about 1619 versus 1776. That's what left and right at the fringes are about. MAGA, January 6th, running up the hill, that's 1776. 2020, BLM burning everything, that's 1619. So these are two different worldviews, and these are codes. So the Leave the World Behind begins with the big ship hitting the beach, reminiscent of this scene here, a big boat coming in, and it has White Lion on the side. White Lion was the name of the first ship that came in on the transatlantic slave trade. 1619 is the year that happened. In Leave the World Behind, the emergency code, the frequency was 1619. So White Lion, 1619. Now, here's where it ties into this particular boat hitting the bridge. Francis Scott Key National Anthem. Next to the Golden Gate Bridge, there was a Francis Scott Key monument that was defaced by BLM and replaced by a 1619 project installation. So there's a bit of worldview warfare in this, two different views of the world that are put into this constant collision course. Somebody had mentioned that Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris from Littleton had talked about crashing planes in New York. I hadn't heard about that. Tim and Vic. In their manifesto, they talked about flying a plane into a building in New York. Klebold has a reported birthday of 9/11. Now, this is another example of concurrent programming. The Matrix came out, and then after the Matrix, you had the Littleton shooters dressed up like characters out of the Matrix. Not a coincidence. Yeah, Dylan Klebold was born on September the 11th. They both died on 4/20. These manifestos are probably worth studying because they're all interconnected. It's like they have the same script writer, the same manifesto writer. Although lately, it seems like they've been churning out manifestos with ChatGPT, not their best work. Okay, continuing here. We talked about the Mars squares. Okay, plane crash, Cotman Avenue, Philadelphia, 131:25. And these events all happened during the week of these major drills going on. And we've been talking about these drills for like the last month. That the last week of January, there's going to be some nuclear incident drills all across the country or across the East Coast, New York. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot of personnel, a lot of people, and they're all pretending. That's what drills are. It's simulations. So they're simulating terror attacks, and then we have real terror attack-like events. Red Pill Drifter noted here, this is a perfectly clean piece of debris that was in that huge explosion. Yeah, the art department failed to char this thing appropriately. It does look a little phony. The mushroom cloud stuff, not a coincidence, obviously. Gondola Wish says there's an agenda to make people fearful of travel, which is part of the 15-minute city smart city agenda. Well, they want you to feel guilty about traveling, and they also want to make it seem like it's dangerous to travel. I got that entire... Okay, so speaking of nukes and mushroom clouds, so if you haven't seen White Noise is worth studying because it was noticed by the media as eerily predictive of the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, that had a big mushroom cloud, just like the movie. East Palestine, Ohio, had to be evacuated, and many actors who were extras in White Noise had to be evacuated. So this was commented on by the media at the time. But if you haven't seen, again, it's called White Noise, starring Adam Driver, which is highly significant. He has some Trump connections. So the other connection here is that East Palestine, Ohio is 42 miles from Butler. So Butler and East Palestine have another interesting connection. But if you haven't seen it, it's about this family, and they're basically the father's underreacting to the news. He doesn't believe the news, and so they're not responsive to this emergency announcement as everything goes blackout and we get nuked, etc. But I notice how they look like the Griswolds. So if you like National Lampoon, the Griswold family going across the country, bonding as a family in a car. And I kind of thought with White Noise they were killing the Griswolds. Like, this is iconoclasm. The idea that you would travel across the country is kind of anathema now. You don't do that anymore. That's bad for Mother Earth. And if you get down to the explanations for the train derailing, it was greed. It was capitalism. It was because of Trump deregulating the trains because they wanted to transport more stuff. So you have this other subtext that capitalism is killing us with climate change, with the environmental destruction, and that our lifestyles need to change. So here's the Griswolds, and then here are the family members from White Noise. You see how similar they are? Not a coincidence. They were killing the Griswolds. And then, of course, it takes place in Ohio, which is the heart of it all. Symbolically, the heart of it all. It's trying to show, I guess, what you would consider to be characteristic of Americans. This is like very Americana. Let's drive across the country with our family. But no, obviously you can't do that because you're killing Gaia. You should be locked down at home. Okay, let's see here. Critterfest Sanctuary said, my turkey Sid Vicious said, all the birds are saying something is afoul about this plane crash. Isabel Ann says, The Weeknd just came out with a new album on 131 called Hurry Up Tomorrow. His name is Abel, born 216. Okay, I haven't listened to it yet, but The Weeknd did kind of intimate, I heard a review, I listened to a review of his album, that he's preparing for the end, that this is the end of the weekend. This is the end of his persona. Maybe he's going to retire. But there is something apocalyptic about it. I believe the Weeknd song Blinding Lights was one of the top songs of 2020. Set a lot of records. All the nurses were dancing to it. Number one song of all time, Blinding Lights, the top Billboard Hot 100 song of all time. Blinding Lights. And the video for Blinding Lights featured him in this Joker-esque kind of persona running around Las Vegas that is seemingly locked down. The streets are empty. And that was, of course, before the lockdowns. The most streamed song on Spotify. Then he has a video for Save Your Tears, which is very Kubrick-esque. Lots of people in masks. And at the end of the video, he puts a gun to his head and he pulls the trigger, and then it shoots out confetti, and it says bang. It's like a fake gun. And everybody laughs, everybody cheers and claps. And the significance of this, I believe, has to do with his name, Abel, a correlation to Abe Lincoln, Abel from Cain and Abel, and his consistent imagery of the head wound thing. He goes out on the Super Bowl performance with this bandage on his head. So there's been this head wound symbolism attached to him for some time. And the Kubrick stuff, the fake shooting, it's all adding up. And I think it's also connected to last year you had Brock Purdy, who was the quarterback of the 49ers, compared to Lee Harvey Oswald. This is some kind of grim play, a lot of this foreshadowing, but you can find various characters or individuals who are like vectors for this propaganda. And The Weeknd has some very interesting points in all this. But I'll have to check out his album because music also contains predictive programming. It's in the books, it's in the music, it's in the movies, it's an echo chamber. But movie posters are often quite revealing. I mean, I should not be able to look at a movie poster and say, okay, last week of January, expect some aerial immolations. Okay, we talked about Nancy Kerrigan. As you can see here, iconic white turtleneck makes her reappearance. The tabloids are catching up with us. The Globe finally reports that JFK filmed his own death. This is what actually made me think I need to just get the Insider out now. Because if I had it in circulation when I scheduled it back in September, we would have had this as our cover back in November. JFK filmed his own death. But now they beat us to it. Yeah, tomorrow's Groundhog's Day. 2/2 is Candlemas, says Tim and Vic. Big pagan holiday. Celebrate the goddess Bridget. It's called Imbolc, which means in milk. It's about the weaning of the sun god. It's all based around the life cycle of the sun deity. But yes, major pagan holiday tomorrow. And 2/2/21 is when they blew up Starship. Many, many anomalies. Again, we talked about this. Flight risk opening weekend, January 24th to the 26th. And the staged photo from the drill activity looks like it was ripped right off the movie poster. Superb Owl or Super Ball next week. We'll be waiting for that to publish issue 2, but I do have some predictions as far as what we can expect for the halftime show. But I'm going to put it into an article so I can cite my sources. Runway 33, Reagan stuff. Listen to this. Science News. Climate change fueled the LA fires. Weather data reveal. So how typical is this? Climate change did it? Or was it government negligence and Newsom? Was it Democrats and weather weapons from the secret government? Or was it climate change caused by the private sector? If it was real, you wouldn't have this alternate reality game in the middle of it where you can just choose your scapegoat and they're both equally valid. It shouldn't work that way. Deep Program Truther said, Tim, you had me so callous to the news. I have not seen one crisis actor video the way he described it. I have to go watch them now. It's kind of nice being able to watch the news without being triggered by it, being manipulated by it. And it's not that we don't care. It's not a lack of empathy. It's kind of a dispassionate distance that skepticism requires. It's just objectivity, which is I think it's banned. Taz Schreiber tweeted this. Hey, special effects makeup here. So this guy's a makeup artist. Blood and gore are my specialty. If the bullet had grazed Trump's ear, it wouldn't look like this. Too far clean. This is too clean. No bullet wound. No missing chunks of the ear. This is what a blood capsule looks like. I still think it was Heinz 57 ketchup packet, like the stuff that JFK used when he faked his death. Trump's dangerous freeze of air traffic control hiring. Another example of how there's a political utility behind every major psyop. Blame it on Trump. Donald Trump's plan for space lasers to destroy nuclear weapons. Infinite Plane Radio. What's up, caller? Thank you for calling.
Hey, I just wanted to do an exercise or run through an exercise with you, if you don't mind. What I was wondering.
Sure. Go on.
Like the study of biology is a hoax. So obviously they've never isolated any viruses, that kind of thing. I don't know how familiar you are with that.
Well, they've isolated the mind virus, the memes that they've determined cause people to get violent. But I mean, I don't want to get into the area of I don't want to get censored, because despite the believability, the plausibility of the big conspiracy theories around it, there was no mass die-off by any means following 2020, whether from the conventional asserted cause or the cure. So I kind of think it's a non-issue at this point. But no, I actually believe that the virus is a construct intended to replace the archaic concept of sin. And the purpose of sin, or the virus, is for the priesthood to regulate the sheeple and to separate the saved from the unsaved. And it works. And you'll notice that the unsaved anti-vax don't like media because they don't want the injectable Eucharist. It's all by design. It's all psyop. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, so yeah, and I understand you don't want to get censored and everything, so I'll tiptoe around what my point is. So I'm just saying, like, the interesting thing about this exercise is that it basically covers both sides. It's sort of like the flat Earth versus globe Earth, dichotomy. So I'm saying that there's the I'm trying to tiptoe around this. So there's the skeptics on the theology, science of theology, and then there's the pro Fauci ouchie contingent. So what I'm asking is, so for somebody who is studying this carefully, so I have a family member who works in the special needs industry, and she's made statements to me about parents coming to her.
No, wait, stop. No, look, this is the thing. We will get censored for hearsay, third-hand hearsay. I know somebody whose cousin, sister died from this, and, it's like, okay, that's the stuff that gets us censored, and it doesn't add anything to the conversation. My position is this. If you're a skeptic, you're not pro anything. If you're a skeptic, you're not anti anything within this controlled paradigm. The only logical, reasonable position, the only skeptical position, is to be anti-pro and anti-anti. I'm anti-anti-vaxxer. And I don't want to platform anti-vaxxers any more than I want to platform pro-vaxxers for the same exact reason. It's a false dichotomy, and it's designed to foment mind war and to create this division. And so I'm kind of a conscientious objector. So I'm not anti-Fauci, nor am I pro-Fauci. Like, I don't care. And so like I don't want to get censored over this. I lost 50 channels in 2020 platforming for propaganda mules. And if you're promoting the anti-position or the pro-position, you're essentially just promoting propaganda that's, again, ammunition in the war. So I'm a complete non-believer in it. I don't even, I have no fear of needles, no fear of any of this stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's really what my point is. That so I'm in a state that mandates that these products are consumed by the children, or they can't go to the.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to ask on a case-to-case basis. Like, I think these are generalizations. Nobody got forced. Anti-vaxxers misappropriated the word force because nobody gets forced. And I think that anti-vaxxers are a hysteric overreaction. They're completely gate-kept and controlled. Like it's Alex Jones level rhetoric meant to incite people. So like, no, I completely look. I mean, I might as well just like, I don't know. I guess my point is, I'm a non-believer. Like you could try to sell me on the benefits of the Pfizer, and I'm just gonna say no, I'm not buying. You can sell me on the benefits of needle phobia. I'm gonna say I'm not buying. You can sell me on the idea that the government is too pushy with it. I'm going to say I'm really not buying this. So no, I'm a non-believer. And it doesn't make me a shill, but I do think that if you're anti-vax, you are a shill for the alternative media controlled opposition. And I'm trying to break away from that. Because if you accept that...
Yeah, but... No, I was just going to say that you were in New Mexico, so I'm in New York. So, so I'm like agreeing with you conceptually. I'm just saying that I'm in a state that they mandate that you have to go.
Yeah, I don't know. Look. This is 2025. I left all that stuff behind in 2022. I platformed anti-vax hysterics for all of 2021. I sacrificed many channels for them to show I was pro-free speech, but nothing was gained. None of their prophecies came true. There was no mass die-off. In fact, anti-vax has no credibility with me. RFK, no credibility with me. They're victims of a war, is what I'm saying. Nobody's getting forced. There's no victims to advocate for. And what you're not worried that Fauci's you're gonna wake up one day and he's gonna be staring over you in bed and he's gonna poke you. Like, you're not worried about yourself, but you're worried about other people. And when you get in this area of you're dealing with this faceless group of martyrs, like, oh, I'm just trying to save the children, you're probably just following somebody's agenda. Like, I'm a non-believer.
Well, so I'm really looking for what your position is. So, like, say you're in a state that they mandate these things.
Look, I'm saying, let me just say this. I don't believe in mandates. Nobody got forced. Nobody gets mandated. And the other point of it is that most people want it. Most people support it and believe in it, and they're not dying from it. So the anti-vaxxers live in a bubble where there's some kind of like real contention here, and there isn't. Anti-vax is a hoax. I'm sorry, but anti-vax is a huge hoax, and I will never support it.
But you don't think that there could be more dangers?
No, none. I don't. Look, no. Sorry. I'm not going to lose the channel over expired propaganda from 2020, and it's not going to wake anybody up here. Because this is a channel for skeptics.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
So if you're gonna try,
I'm more looking for the exercise of it. Like so. I mean, maybe we shouldn't even talk about that particular topic.
I think we dealt with it. We dealt with it in 2020, 2021, 2022. Like I said, I platformed anti-vaxxers. In fact, in 2021, I said I'm sick of anti-vaxxers, and then Tim Truth called. And after we talked, I said, fine, I'll give it some more time. I gave it another year. I gave them a year to warn everybody and save lives, and hopefully they feel like they did some good. But now it's in 2025, and I'm like, none of the people who are in favor of it are dead. There wasn't a mass die-off. It clearly wasn't some weapon designed to do that. It was purely a political prop to turn people into essentially woke right and woke left. It's to put people on the fringes. It's to make things very existential. But no, I think the whole thing's a hoax, and I literally don't think it does any good to talk about it.
Yeah, I still think you're conflating the most recent product versus the legacy products that are being forced in states like California.
Okay, look, I don't believe any of that. I just don't. I would need some specific information, and I want a victim, like a literal target, like, oh, I was forced to do this. I don't see it. I think it's a lot of advocacy for fake victims. Like, what about all the soldiers who got kicked out of the military? Well, how many people are you really talking about? Like, let's get to some specifics here. It's all narrative. And I don't want this, I don't platform anti-positions, nor do I platform pro-positions. And this is an anti-position. But, I mean, I'm willing to debate it. But you don't have any evidence. And none of the claims of the anti-vax hysterics came true whatsoever. Not one.
There's definitely, and I've actually done data analysis, so I'm not saying that it impacts, not 100% of individuals. Like my very large data set analysis showed that it impacts about 5 or 6%.
I don't know. Look, the whole field is awash with liars and grifters. For example, the Stu Peters puts out these documentaries, and he gets these fake embalmers to say, "Oh, the bodies are coming in and they're clotted," and I'm like, these are liars. I can prove it, because if you die unexpectedly, you get an autopsy. If you get an autopsy, your arteries get severed, and it requires a 6-point injection to embalm that body, meaning there are no clots, because you're dealing with the body in sections. Now, if you die from natural causes, then there's a 1-point injection. But if you're dying from natural causes, then no alarm's been raised. You're not blaming the pokey. But with natural deaths, it's nothing but clots. And that's because the body is in the refrigerator for a couple of days. But when you're embalming a body single point, you're using forceps to pull the clots out the entire time. So I see these documentaries and like, oh, this thing's giving people clots and they're dying. I'm like, no, dead bodies are clotted. The blood is congealed. And again, if it was an unexpected death, the embalmer's not going to see any clots, because they're doing a 6-point injection. So the whole thing's farcical. And I'm not going to give credence to any of it if 99% of it is farcical. I'm sorry, but the anti-vax movement is totally corrupt.
Yeah, no, listen to me. I'm agreeing with you. I think on the more recent one, that could have actually been an op that was designed to confuse the issue or to pull the narrative. As you said, it's kind of like the more recent one created the flat Earth versus round Earth argument, and I agree with what you're saying. I'm talking more about
what's more likely, that they're going to kill you or give you life extension, because they want lifelong customers. Like, I've argued that Big Macs are life extension over clotting you to death.
Well,
and I'm saying,
let me just make a argument that I think that the system, the people that lead the system, like one of their goals is to keep everybody busy. So I'm not even saying that the schedule that they give the children is meant to kill them.
Okay, look, I'm sorry. This sounds like advocacy for a position with an agenda. And IPS doesn't platform world stage agendas. I'm not here for someone to call in and promote recycling because we got to save Gaia. It's like, I don't believe in recycling or Gaia. And so this is an agenda. And this is not the audience where it's going to influence anybody. You're not going to influence me. I think it's all crap. I think it's all stale, old propaganda, agitprop at that. And it should just be burned at this point. I think we can leave it behind. Leave the propaganda behind. It's been 5 years. There's no big pile of bodies. Dancing nurses, psyop entertainment. I think we exposed it a long time ago. So I can't see spending my time on this unless we want to, on principle, just give equal time to world stage positions. But that's Trutherville. Like, I'm not in Trutherville. And you're not going to reach Trutherville here. I am specifically quarantining against Trutherville and people who automatically believe the controlled opposition talking points. Like, this is not an issue for me at this point.
Okay, I understand. I mean, again, I'm not actually, attempting to push any agenda. Really, I'm asking for your advice on, how to handle and I don't even think it has to even hit this hot topic issue. Like, I think it could be used more generically in that, like, if the system wants you to affirmatively, perform some type of activity, and you would prefer to not participate in that activity, how do you handle it?
This is an old expired topic. I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think it's relevant. Like should we buy space junk helmets? Like, to me, this is a psyop entertainment prop we're talking about. I truly would say this too, that the needle phobia is the opposite of gun phobia. Like left wing is anti-gun, right wing is anti-needle. This is all symbolic. These are props, and these are meant to maintain a perfect division. So no, I don't care. I don't care to give it any more time. Like, look, I'm anti-vaxxer, and it sounds to me like these are anti-vaxxer talking points, and I just have to call it out. So like, no, I reject it all. I think it's phony. And look, if you could point to a stack of bodies, I would say maybe you have a point, but not one. I don't know anybody.
The only thing, and I can understand that you're obviously passionate about this topic.
No, I'm not. I actually don't care about it, but I am passionate about defending this think tank against mainstream media propaganda designed to censor us. And you're veering into this area where we're going to get censored for the benefit of who? We're not saving any lives,
right.
And you're reaching skeptics.
Yeah,
like you should be calling in.
That's why I think
call into regular AM talk radio. Carry a sign on the street. Like you're engaging in activism, and I do not advocate any activism. I think activism.
Well, it's just that there's just special needs people that work in the special needs industry.
Look. I'm gonna say this sounds like hearsay. I don't know if you have unless you're getting paid to promote this stuff. There's no reason to. Like nobody's dying, nobody's crying. Not you. I mean, but not you specifically. But what I'm saying is like. There's money to be made in anti-vax hysteria. Like Stu Peters has made himself rich, but like if you're not getting paid for it, you're a propaganda mule for state media, and that's pretty much what it comes down to.
So I do think there's more money to be made on the pro side than the anti side. Like how do people make money on the anti side?
The entire alt media infrastructure is built on anti-media, anti-vax, anti-whatever they serve us in the mainstream. We're anti-climate change. Anti is mind control. Pro is mind control. You got to be anti to get off world stage. And I got off the world stage even before the pandemic started. I never fell for it. And then I didn't fall for the alt pandemic, which is what anti-vax is. It's the same thing. It's just the alternate version, and it's compartmentalization.
I think my main criticism is when they force you. It's like
okay, look, I got to end the call. I got to end the call because nobody's been forced. I got to end the call. I hate hanging up on people, but I don't care what the agenda is. I'm not here to platform political agenda, and that is an agenda. Girl says, this channel's bodyguarding the U.S. military for hoaxes and their crimes. No, we're the only ones exposing the psyop entertainment complex. We're the only ones doing that. This is the only channel on the entire internet that recognizes that the psyop entertainment complex exists ubiquitously and that all of the various military industrial complex drama is beneath that, and it's all fake. The anti-movements are fake. Anti-vax is fake. And nobody else is saying that. And I'm sorry to be contrarian. Well, I'm kind of not. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude, you know the last call you got with the talking about the injection?
Yes.
Okay, look, dude. Wouldn't it be easier just to tell your audience? Because I know that you like to, kind of play with the words. But listen. You know me. I'm not going to say anything that's going to mess up your channel. So listen, wouldn't it be easier just to say you are anti-injection, but you just don't believe the hysteria behind it?
Okay, good point. I have an answer for that. I'm a non-vaxxer. I'm not an anti. I'm not a pro. I'm a non. There is a third position. It's the conscientious objector. So I'm a non.
Is it non-anti? Is it non-anti?
No. I'm just I'm not even opining on it. Like, for example, I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a ball earther. I don't have enough information, or I'm not taking sides in what could be a false dichotomy.
Yeah, but you're on the non-side because if you won't inject yourself, then you are anti. Because the other side would be you actually take it.
No, I'm not anti-alcohol. I don't drink, but it's not because I'm anti-alcohol. I just don't. I just don't care. But I could at some other point. So no, the non-position means I'm just not taking a position. I'm not participating in this. I'm not imbibing, but I'm not telling other people not to.
Right. Okay. Well, no, I understand, but And would you say that what's the reason why you don't take it?
The reason I don't take the thing itself is because I am...
No, any of them. If you were against, like, let's say you're against, like you wouldn't take any of them. What would be the reason why you wouldn't take any of them? I'm saying.
Oh, I see. I think mistrust, but I don't know if it's a very serious position, because the people who are anti this smoke cigarettes, they eat Big Macs, they consume unhealthy media. So it's not like they're all health nuts, but this one particular thing they're healthy about. Like, so I kind of think that the anti-movement is mostly virtue signaling for the most part, because they think they're saving lives. But no, I mean, like, I'm very proactive about my health. And there are a lot of things I don't do, but it's not because I'm anti them. I just don't. And I feel the same way with this. So
Yeah, well, the reason I'm just saying, listen, I know that sometimes it seems like you troll the people, but because if I didn't know you, I'd be like, oh, this guy's, he's for the, you know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is that it would be so much simpler. That way you don't get calls like that. You would just tell people, listen, I don't even want to talk about it because I'm not again.
I get it. Somebody says, like, if I say I'm not anti, therefore I want to force it on everybody, and that's how a lot of people respond to these things. The reason I won't say anti is I don't want to be on the same team as Stu Peters. I don't want to be attached to people who still believe in all these other fake things. So to distance myself from them, the programmed alternate people, I can't take I just can't take the anti position, even though I'm also refusing it, maybe out of a different reason. But yeah, so I'm just careful not to associate myself with their bad opinions.
Well, yeah. See, the only difference is they do the extreme other side. We're talking about people, in the middle, where we're not sitting here trying to get people to run around with their, like chickens with their head cut off. That's what those other people say. Oh, they're putting it in the water. They're putting it in this. You know what I mean? It's, because didn't they do the watch the water thing?
Yes, they did. They did.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is, we know that the powers that be are not here to help us. We know that, right?
Well, I know what they're here to farm us. I don't think their agenda is killing us.
I agree with that. I don't think they're here to actually get rid of you in the fast way. That's for sure.
But the thing is, okay, let's say if you take the thing, here's where I don't. If you take the thing, you're acquiescing to quite a lot of propaganda. You're saying, I believe in the thing that happened. I trust the authorities. I trust the rationale for the lockdowns, and I agree with these experts, and these people are bad. So just to take it is to associate yourself with an entire cluster of beliefs and assumptions and partisan politics. It's like taking a communion wafer, for example. Now it's almost a sacrament in a way. And I'm not interested in taking a sacrament to the media, the church of media. And I think that's what it is tantamount to. So I'm not taking part in it because I think it's mostly just a symbolic gesture. I mean, for example, I was not pro-mask, but the anti-mask group of people got mixed in, and it just became like, okay, well, now if you're anti-masker, now you're pro-Trump, and now you're part of this whole alternative media operation, a foot soldier.
Well, again, this is where we're talking about moderation, because the people in the middle would never say that the mask had stuff in it that was making the people sick. You get what I'm saying? They were actually saying it was embedded into the mask.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, but do you see what I'm saying? So I get where you're coming from when you're saying you don't want to be part of the. All I'm saying is, it would be just more simpler if you would just say, the government is not here to help you, dude. We know that, okay? I'm not saying they're here to destroy you immediately, but they're surely not here to help you. We obviously know that.
Well, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I did. I was like waiting. I was like, let's see. A couple years, 3 years. Let's see if it's a ticking time bomb. Let's see if there's a mass die-off on the left. And since it didn't happen, I'm comfortable taking the non-position, but I understand what you're saying here because it makes it sound like I am by default not calling out something that could be bad. But yeah, it's tricky.
Well, just real quick before we talk about the plane stuff, let me just say that I am 100% against the injection. I'm 100%. I 100%. I don't believe in a spinning ball Earth. Okay, but again, I'm not sure exactly what the Earth looks like, but I'm 100%. It's not a spinning ball hurling through an endless space. And as far as the stuff that people say that is being sprinkled in the air, with the trails in the sky. Again, I'm a little bit on the. I'm not with you on this one. I'm in the middle, saying I don't believe that they're doing something to hurt us. I'm saying they're doing something to season us, like salt and pepper, for something they might do with us in the future. That's all I'm saying with the stuff that whatever the hell they're doing in the air. But see, you say they're not doing nothing. I'm not sure what you're saying on that.
Interesting. No, I don't think they are. However, someone said to me they believed that we've been hit with a constant barrage from all over of environmental toxins and poisons that artificially keep our lifespans shorter. This person claims that we should be living to 150, but the only reason it's half that is because of what we're hit with. That's somewhat plausible, but I mean, as far as a reason, like if you wanted to manage a bunch of people, you would want to shorten their lifespans relative to the people controlling it, because you would have all kinds of power over them. You'd have a huge advantage. So I can understand that reasoning, but I avoid it because that reasoning is called the appeal to motive, where you're like, well, this is why they would do it. But I don't know. I don't have faith that the people running the show are good because they're psychologically traumatizing people every day. And there are many who argue that emotional and psychological abuse can be worse than physical abuse, especially because it's never stopped, it's long-term, and it creates something similar to PTSD. They call it complex traumatic stress. So I kind of think that, no, there's no reason to think that they like us, but I think they're primarily focused on destroying our minds. Our bodies we can destroy on our own.
Yeah, well, they just make, mindless slaves. I get it. But anyway, let's move on, but we're never going to agree 100% on anything. But, and of course, I believe in Jesus with all my heart and soul, and you are not there yet. I get it. So let's move on from that too. But this is just to let people who are listening know that I don't compromise myself. I just try to be friendly and try to, get the truth out to what I believe, even if it's on channels that don't agree with me. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you've never held back. I mean, you're very firm in your opinions, and you don't kowtow to conventional standards, even if what you're saying goes outside of what people are comfortable with. And I think that's great. I think it's great. You shouldn't compromise.
All right. And anyway, just real quick before we talk about the plane thing, just in case no one knows who I am, my channel is Jurassic Liars. And you just punch in Jurassic Liars, Elvis Seattle, and you'll find my channels. But anyway, so what have you got on this plane thing? Have you seen any of my videos or other people's videos?
No, I was actually curious about it because it was American Airlines, so I thought AA may have some significance. But no, I was actually curious because I was looking at these in the context of predictive programming, and there's quite a lot of stuff there. But as far as the Philly and the Reagan National Airport crash, what have you picked up?
Well, obviously, the first one you had the Eagle. It was American Eagle, right? So you had the Eagle. Then it was coming from Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. Even though it's not Kansas City, but Kansas and Wichita, Kansas. By the way, Obama's mother's from Wichita, Kansas. But you had the Kansas connection and you had the American Eagle. So you got those two connections with that. And it was going off of runway 33. We already know all that. And the other plane from yesterday, it crashes in Philly. and it was on its way to Missouri, where Kansas City plays. I mean, it's just, well, I mean, like, I'm just asking, what are the chances of that?
Right, right. And then the Philadelphia Eagles Twitter had tweeted some weird picture of a helicopter the day before. And I think this all connects to Kobe Bryant because his explosion was the same week. There's the snake, Year of the Snake just kicked off, and the Black Mamba Kobe Bryant snake theme was pretty strong at that time. There's quite a lot to suggest that this thing is a hoax. Hey, there's a guy in the chat. Jacob Menden says, JL, you're a legend. I watched your videos back in 2017.
Yeah, he's talking about my fake news videos, I think. Yeah, I've been on since 2015, 2014 with the fake news. But check this out. Notice, by the way, I appreciate the comment. But listen, so here's the president connections. So you have Reagan Airport, then you had Roosevelt, because it was at the Roosevelt Mall near there where it crashed, the second one. So the first one was the Reagan Airport. And then, you know, Trump's been talking about that McKinley. He changed Denali back to McKinley Mountain, right, or something?
Okay, that's right. And Roosevelt. I did notice the Roosevelt connection. So there was the Roosevelt Mall.
And then McKinley, the first crash was on McKinley's birthday, the 129. That's McKinley's birthday. There was another connection. No, I can't remember. McKinley was the 32nd president. I'm sorry. Roosevelt was the 32nd president, and that was Elvis. That's the year Elvis was born, during Roosevelt's presidency. Roosevelt, whatever the hell his name is. And the 32nd prime is 131. And 131 was the date of the second one. I'm just saying there was a lot of, you know, connections with that. And also, you know, that Pearl Harbor happened during Roosevelt, the Franklin Roosevelt. Even though the Roosevelt Mall is named after Theodore, it doesn't matter. It's still the Roosevelt connection.
Right. It's the names. There was a connection. Well, they correlated this to the Challenger explosion. I thought that was interesting. I don't know the significance of it, Reagan National Airport, but Reagan's speech after the Challenger was brought up. And this is a similar analogous disaster. I was just noting the pattern of things in the sky exploding during this part of the year, like the end of January. Challenger, Kobe, this. And by the way, tomorrow's the 33rd day of the year. It's Groundhog Day.
Right.
A lot of mushroom clouds, I've noticed. A lot of mushroom cloud references. So I kind of think this is interesting too, because one of your predictions is that Seattle gets the nuke. And I'm really thinking, based on everything we're looking at, that we're being set up for it now. There were drills going on all across the country all last week, well, all around New York, having to do with a nuclear incident. The Black Hawk was doing a drill for a continuity of government doomsday scenario. So it seems like that's in the cards right now anyway. Do you think this year, 6/11, do you think this is it?
Yeah, I do believe that this is the final. We're at the final finish line here. But yeah, I did notice a lot of mushroom cloud stuff. And man, there was one other thing I was going to mention. Did you know that it was the first crash was 9 days after Trump was elected, and the second one was 11 days after?
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, the 9/11s, the 19 victims, Runway 33, all the typical hallmarks of a hoax are evident on this one. But yeah, the mushroom cloud thing was brought up, and then LA, the Los Angeles fires. They were comparing that to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I don't think these things are disconnected. And I think that we're just being saturated so that when 6/11 rolls around, or if that's the date they choose, no one's going to dispute that the nuke really happened.
Yeah, this is they're being set up for the people's being set up here. Like I said, Washington, they're going to take a piece of Washington State out of they're going to take a piece off of it, and that's the Elvis head that I think is going to be put into the water. You know, the part of Elvis's head in Washington State, and and you know that Washington is the Apple state, right? And you know the Apple computer, you know that it was when it first came out, it was $666.66, right?
That's right, right. The first Apple computer, $666.66. And yeah, and
right.
the Apple, that's got to be a Garden of Eden reference, the Apple itself. But anyway, go on.
Well, yeah, and the Apple, they're referencing the garden. I mean, you know, the eating from the tree, right? So they took a bite out of the apple. They're going to take a bite out of the Washington state, the Apple state, and the Apple logo came out in 1977 with the one with the bite on it. Came out the year Elvis died, and the year Seattle Slew won the Triple Crown on June 11th. You know,
fascinating. Yeah, there it is. Apple computer with the bite out of it. Somewhat ominous. And there's a rabbit hole here that is worth going down if people want to look into it. And it's like, no, the whole tree of knowledge, the bite. What's going on here? Are we entering into some kind of satanic simulation? Really intriguing when you get into this stuff, because it's like, I look at the psyops, the hoaxes, but what's with all this devil stuff attached to it?
Yeah, but let me ask you this: have you looked into the 666 references with the football teams?
No, I have not. What are those? Which ones?
Well, they're saying that this is the big story with the KC in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia Eagles, they beat the Washington Commanders last week, or whatever, the week before, whatever. They beat them. Washington Commanders had 666 wins when Philadelphia beat them last week. So Philadelphia won. And so Washington Commanders stays with 666 wins, but now Philadelphia has 666 wins because they won that last game. So now they have 666 wins, and they have 665 losses in their lifetime. So if they lose the Super Bowl, they're going to have 666 wins, 666 losses. So everyone's banking on that.
Okay.
It's going to be at 666. Okay.
Now, okay, go on, because they just renamed.
No, go ahead.
Okay, the headlining show for the Super Bowl halftime show is called Apple Music Super Bowl 59. So it's the Apple Music Super Bowl, and Kendrick Lamar is hosting it. There's some significance there, really, because of his various videos where he's done this Christ thing. He puts on the crown of thorns, but the halftime shows are always just replete with all kinds of symbolism, etc. But also, we have the connections, Kansas City, Kansas, Wichita, the plane, and then others are connecting the planes themselves to eagles. And then we have the plane crash in Philly. So you do have this pretty strong correlation here with these two plane crashes and the upcoming Super Bowl.
Well, here's the big, so that's why everyone thinks KC is going to win, okay? Now, you have also on this side. By the way, I'm not saying that Casey's going to win. I'm just saying, I'm showing you the connections. So, because I'm telling people never to gamble on these stupid sports games. Anyway, KC is going for 3 in a row, 3 Super Bowls in a row, okay? And I told you that 3 is like a triple crown, right? Because Seattle Slew won the Triple Crown the year Elvis died, right, on June 11th. Seattle Slew won the Triple Crown that day on June 11th. So if they win 3 Super Bowls in a row, it's like a triple crown, right? And man.
Well, okay, last Super Bowl, you had Travis Kelce, which you said sounds like Elvis Presley, and he gets the trophy, named for a guy born on 6/11, and he sings the Elvis song "Viva Las Vegas." And so I think there's some correlation here. Even I think there's a connection here also with the idea of a nuclear strike and a touchdown that was suggested in that movie Oblivion. But anyway, there was something highly significant there, highly significant with Travis Kelce last year.
Right. The Super Bowl trophy the trophy is 6'11", okay? Because Vince Lombardi trophy is the Super Bowl trophy, and he was born on 6'11". So the year Elvis died, because Elvis died on 8/16, that year Seattle Slew won the Triple Crown on June 11th. So right now, KC is trying for the Triple Crown, the three-peat, to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. And the reason I'm mentioning the Triple Crown is because Elvis died on 8/16, and the 8/16 area code is Kansas City. See the correlation?
Okay, I see that.
They're going for a Triple Crown. And when Elvis died on 8/16, there was a Triple Crown winner that year. Seattle Slew won it on 6/11. And the Super Bowl trophy is 6/11. And now KC's going for the Triple Crown. And their KC plays in the 8/16 area code, the Elvis's death date. Does that make sense?
Yes. And one thing I was looking at too, KC, you got the arrowhead, and Broken Arrow would represent the 33rd nuke. And KC, of course, is 11-3. And 11-3 being highly significant, again, Challenger explodes, 1 minute, 13 seconds, Columbia, 113th shuttle. The One World Trade Tower that replaces the Twin Towers opens on 11-3. So I think there's quite a lot here as far as this football game and the symbolism attached to it. I'm not sure what Taylor Swift's role is in this year around, but last year Taylor Swift was bringing a lot of weird and stuff the mainstream even noticed. The number stuff, the 13th time she's at a game.
She was the Apple.
Yes.
Yeah, she's definitely the Apple girl in that iPad Goat video. So listen, there's just too much to go through. And I don't want to bore everybody. I've already bored people to death on the channel. But anyway, I just wanted to get my 2 cents in on whatever the heck you were talking about. See, I didn't come in early, so I don't know what you guys were talking about earlier.
Mostly about the planes and some of the weirdness surrounding it. But yeah, I'm under the impression that these are all psyops done under the cover of drills. Now, speaking one more time of Elvis, there was that movie I often reference called Megalopolis. And it's about Make Rome Great Again. It's Megalopolis. The main character is Caesar. And I found some interesting connections that you might find interesting having to do with this actor named Giancarlo Esposito, the chicken man from Breaking Bad. Well, he plays the mayor in Megalopolis that orchestrates an assassination attempt where they shoot the right eye of the guy that represents Trump. And I've been kind of digging into this particular actor because, again, he seems to be representing the role that you said Obama's going to have, as far as Obama is the orchestrator of the Trump head wound. So then it turns out that he is also the antagonist to the Homelander in The Boys. Well, if you remember, the Homelander represents Trump in this series. So the Trump's antagonist is played by the same actor. And of course, that season finale was called Assassination Run, and they had to rename it because it happened around the time of the Trump shooting. Then he's the mayor in Megalopolis, and he, again, orchestrates an assassination attempt. He is the Sidewinder in the Captain America, who's the antagonist to the president. And of course, the trailer for Captain America came out the day before the Trump shooting, and Harrison Ford as president gets shot at while he's at the podium. So the same actor is the antagonist in all these movies, and I've seen this reoccurring theme. And then there was a movie that came out in 2012 called Revolution on NBC, and he played Obama, or an Obama-like tyrant. So one of the things you've consistently pointed out is Obama's connection to this story of Trump's head wound. And here I have half a dozen instances of predictive programming for the Trump head wound that have come true with the same actor and the same dynamic. So I thought you might find that interesting. If you haven't seen this actor, I looked up his birth date. I don't think it's any significant date, but Giancarlo Esposito.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I'll look into that. And don't forget in that movie that dude who was hung upside down. What was his name again?
Oh, yes. The guy that was hung upside down.
I forgot.
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, and he's born on June 11th.
Yes.
That was.
And he was upside down, crucified in front of the $100 bill. And I brought this movie up though because at the end of the movie, it's getting near New Year's, and New York got hit by some falling satellite, but they have Elvis singing "America the Beautiful" wrapped in an American flag, and I'm like, okay, America the Beautiful was Trump's inauguration song, wrapped in a flag, and it's Elvis. And then Trump goes to DC, and you see Trump and Melania standing in front of an Elvis impersonator who has the big Elvis sign, the comeback sign behind him, which is just like the Trump comeback sign he used at the RNC. So I'm like, okay, this is some strange life imitating art stuff right here.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to, all you got to do is go watch my videos. Just watch the live stream section of my channel, and you'll get caught up on what I'm talking about. But I think. Oh, and speaking of, you were mentioning Caesar. Yeah, that's what the Super Bowl is. Caesar Superdome too. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this stuff is all super layered. I mean, the fact that the main character in Megalopolis, which they call Make Rome Great Again, they call him Caesar, but he's Trump, and he gets shot 3 days later. He comes back healed. So you have that connection. The Harrison Ford character, who plays the president, is shot in the trailer, which they changed the trailer after 7/13. But 7/13 is Harrison Ford's birthday, and it's Julius Caesar's birthday. And then Trump was basically Julius Caesar in the Park back in 2017 when they killed the Trump guy. Looked just like Trump as Caesar. So these are just layers, but I'm just pointing out that one consistent thing in all the Trump predictive programming is Obama's in the background.
Yeah, and Trump's going to get his head one on Obama's birthday, August 4th. Yeah. In Ohio.
Yeah, there's the other part. Well, we were talking about the weekend earlier, and the weekend with the head wound stuff and his name, Abe, and of course his birthday, 2/16.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because the 59th Super Bowl connects to the 55. And I'll tell you why. Because that's what this whole Super Bowl is. It's the twin connection. Because 5 equals 9. 5 and 9 are the exact same in gematria. There's no difference. All numbers are the same. So when you see 55, you're seeing 59. Because 5/5 equals 5/9. Okay? So that's why that Super Bowl, the head wound Super Bowl, is very important, because that's the Satan Super Bowl, right? Satan equals 55. The 55th Super Bowl was the weekend Super Bowl. And for the people who've never seen my weekend video, you got to see it. It's perfect matches with the numbers and everything.
Well,
so the 55 is the 59, okay?
Well, the weekend's video called Save Your Tears, he fake shoots himself. You know, this is something I mentioned this earlier, but just another reoccurring. That's such a weird character, by the way. All right, let's see here. There was something else. I wanted to ask you while you're here. Let's see if I can get to it. A lot of comments in the chat here. Anything on Taylor Swift? I mean, she's been a kind of a character attached to the Super Bowl.
Well, like I said, the Taylor Swift, of course, that's why the creature's dating Travis Kelce, which sounds like Elvis Presley. Taylor Swift is born 11 months, 6 days after Elvis was born. That's one connection. Okay, the 11-6 connection, 6-11. And she's dating Elvis Presley. Travis's Travis, her ex, is born on 10/5, which is the day he went back to Butler. That's another connection.
And what about 50? Okay, 58. Trump made $58 billion on Trump coin. And I've picked up on some things, like he has Trump Tower, 58 stories. His first term was the 58th inauguration. The first time Trump appears in predictive programming is in that 1958 movie Trackdown. He's referenced in Quantum Leap, goes back to 1958. And if you go back to the future, Biff Tannen, Trump, makes his first million in 1958. 58 years after 58, he becomes president. He's 58 when he marries Melania. So I've noticed all these 58s connected with Trump. And then 58 billion. So, like, I don't know if you had anything on that particular number.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what 58 is. Well, first of all, 58, the word father equals 58, but that's not why I'm going to tell you what the reason. 58 is the connection to 42, because you know, when you get to 100 or to 1,000 or to 10,000 or to 100, it's always like a reset moment, like to 10 to 100 to. So 42 plus 58 is 100. So the 42 is the reverse of 58, basically. Do you get it?
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So when you see 58, you're seeing 42. That's what's important. And Elvis died at 42. Washington's the 42nd state. You know. So that's the connection to the 58.
Okay, I see that. So there's like 67 casualties at an event. In a reverse way, it kind of refers to 33.
Right. Exactly. That's what it is. Elvis, I'll prove it to you. The name Elvis equals 67. Okay. 67 is the kind of the backwards of 33, and the 67th prime is the first time you see the numbers 33 in a prime number. It's 331. The 67th prime is 331. Okay? So
Okay, someone here
here
wants to know, how do you arrive at 55 and 59? You're referring to if you spell out the word 55 and you spell out the word 59.
55.
And that's,
right.
okay,
It'll
so
equal the same.
that's the basis for this type of cipher, this type of encoding things. But, we're just calling out what's there. We are calling out patterns that exist that are encoded into things. And it is a fact that Western occultism, modern occultism, has always had this process of adding additional meaning to things by finding words that correlate based on their numerical value. This is not new.
Oh, but hold on, I just want to clarify because I want to make sure people understand this. The 42 and the 58 is just going by numbers. I'm talking to the people in the chat because 42 plus 58 is 100. But the 55-59 connection is when you spell out the words. Like you're writing a check, you write out 55, write out 59. They both equal the same in gematria. 55 equals 59. And the reason that is because the number 5, FIVE, equals the same as NINE. And it's all about the twin, okay?
Right.
Yeah, anyway,
right.
Go ahead.
Well, no, this is all. I mean, this is internally consistent. I mean, it shouldn't be this predictable, but it is. I'm going to put together a series of predictions about the Super Bowl and what I expect for the halftime show. I didn't know it was Apple Music, which may have some significance. Now, there are some people who believe that Steve Jobs and John Lennon are the same person. And that's an interesting connection when you look at John Lennon, Steve Jobs, because you got Apple with the Beatles, and then you got Apple computers. And if you look at the two of them side by side, it's like, yeah, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if this is some world stage character. I mean, it's kind of a side issue, but for those who haven't looked into it, take a look at Steve Jobs, John Lennon, and then the use of the Apple. There seems to be some kind of a parallel here.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I mean, I don't believe that they're the same, but I get where you're coming from. Definitely, the Beatles were on Apple Records and all that, and the Beatles anagram is the EL Beast because Elvis was the EL. EL means God in Hebrew, and the next big thing after Elvis was the Beatles, the EL Beast.
Oh, okay, okay. El Beast, and I think Charles Manson believed that the White Album revealed that the Beatles represent the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and the White Album, Revelation number 9, was about the uprising, and they had the sounds of machine guns and pigs being killed. But yes, Charles Manson had this obsession with the Beatles, and he believed that they were the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's funny, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But, yeah, man, we could go on all day with the connections. We can go on all day with this, so I just wanted to know if there was anything, new that came up that you wanted to talk about or something. But
I know that this is going to be a big week. It's going to be a big week. 2025 is not disappointed. It's been insane. But everything seems to be following according to plan. The Elvis stuff is just there, whether people have been paying attention to it or not. I mean, it's part of the big script. And one of the things that... Yeah.
That Elvis... Go ahead. One of the things is what? What were you about to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, one of the things that you've consistently pointed out is that you can't separate Obama from this picture. And it's interesting because nobody was talking about Obama for years. He was just kind of a ghost. He was gone. But you kept bringing him up in context of this Trump head wound and the nuking of Seattle. And then I'm looking at all these movies, and I'm like, every time the Trump character gets it, there's an Obama character in the background orchestrating it.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, right? And anyway, don't be surprised that during the Super Bowl that we see an Elvis connection. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, I'll be looking. I mean, I'll be watching it for these reasons, and I have a few ideas, but I'm going to put it in a blog because I've noticed patterns in the last 3 Super Bowl halftime shows that connect them definitively to some one of these mystery school fertility rites. It's really insane, but it's there.
Yeah, can you do me a favor, man? Because some people might want to go to the channel. Can you put the correct link? Because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, you should.
That way people can.
Yeah, you should actually buy a domain. I mean, it's probably a little late now, but you could just to direct people to it right away. Okay, here it is. Jurassic Liars, Elvis, Seattle 611, Trump 84. Okay, so I have your channel,
Yeah, you could put a link.
and I'm gonna spam it.
You could put a link in there.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm gonna share it so that a number of people are asking. So if you haven't checked out his channel, because I mean, we overlap. Our research tends to overlap. I mean, I do a lot of research. We're looking at the same things, but you tend to get sources that I haven't looked at, and you've brought a lot of intriguing information to the table here. So I appreciate you calling in, and I am going to spam your link below. Thank you for calling.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. That would be Jurassic Liars, who has been very consistent. Very, very consistent in his, you could say prophecy, whatever you want to call it, but we're being led into something. And we have different views on what it is. His view is certainly biblical. I have a different take on it. But, the way this works, though, is if we're all on the same trajectory and we're looking legitimately for the truth, we should all arrive at the same point. We should arrive at the same conclusions. Unless you're in denial, some people are too, caught up in their box to see outside of it. Dwayne Gare says JL is number heavy, but it's there, because you got numbers, you got symbols, you got colors, you got entire archetypes, narrative scripts, and actors. I find one of the most intriguing things is the actors. So there's a new movie out called Ground Zero with Robert De Niro. I haven't seen it yet. Ground Zero, Robert De Niro. And it has to do with a blackout, and he's a former president. And the reason why this is significant here is that the actor Robert De Niro has portrayed Trump in various ways. He's been an integral part of this buildup towards the Trump head wound stuff, specifically the Joker movie. Or even the CEO shooter was compared to Travis Bickle. But we've been noting the instances of predictive programming for this Trump character where they have various actors who play that particular role. And it turns out that Robert De Niro is highly significant in this. So it's notable here that he would be portraying a former president. Somebody dropped off a bucket of blue titanium wrenches, so we have some new members here. IFEPA73, Isabel Ann, Marcel, IFEPA73, RJ, McDirtywork, Haley Harmon, Haysack Sniper, Elephant Tusks, and King TL have all received the blue wrench. Now we have 243 live listeners on the video alone. We have at least another 50 if we go and look at the audio stream. So we're on radio.net, TuneIn, paranormal.radio. We were on Radio King and a few others. Not hard to find us. So I'm going to put a link in the chat if you haven't subscribed to check out his channel. Because, what we're all fundamentally doing, whether you agree with somebody's conclusions, is we're all looking at media in a very skeptical way, as in not believing anything unless it's attended by evidence, and recognizing that it's not like hoaxes are anomalies. No, hoaxes are the rule, not the exception. It's the hoaxes that drive the mainstream narratives anyway. The fake news, that is. Those drive the larger narrative. They bend our reality. It's like hoaxes are the rule, not the exception. The script is number heavy. There's that. Yeah, look, this it points to the intentionality of it all. That's what we're kind of getting at here when we're talking about these indicators of scripting. And the numbers are there, and there's internal consistency. And I'm not saying I know what all the numbers mean, but by context, you can actually kind of discern what they mean. You can get a pretty good idea. So, for example, the number 33. How often do we see 33s attached to psyops, like major big psyops, like in very conspicuous ways? And it's not cherry picking. Then there's the number 42, consistently attached to every race war psyop, every civil rights activist. Rosa Parks was 42, Jackie Robinson, Mr. 42. You had Jackie Robinson, Mr. 42, MLB, first black player, MLB. Then you have, and it goes to pretty much every one of these events. You had Chadwick Boseman played Mr. 42. He had Operation 42. He died at 42. He put $4.2 million into like COVID relief. But the 42 thing, and then he played Black Panther, the Marvel character, but a reference to the Black Panthers, the predecessor to BLM. And the consistency here, though, seems to indicate that there's either an internal code or language that we're not privy to, or it's some kind of internal notation for script writers to categorize their work. I'm not exactly sure 100%, but I know that the numbers and patterns are there and they're consistent. Isabel Ann says, it may be JL's year. There's a full moon on 6/11. Okay, so he mentioned 6/11 and 8/4 as being two key dates. August the 4th, Obama's birthday. 6/11, Seattle gets nuked. Well, Trump was shot at 6:11 p.m. and 33 seconds. 84 days later, he goes back to Butler. And they have a moment of silence. And they play Ave Maria, which was the song sung by the Riddler, who looks just like the shooter. I mean, it's fascinating to get into all these things, but what I'm saying here is that you would be a reality denialist if you were to minimize the significance of the fakery, the numbers, and the symbols, which are all there. I'm going to be putting together a video prediction for the Super Bowl. So if you're a member of the channel, you will get that. I want to say thanks to everyone, especially the callers, P. Trippa, Drastic Liars, and Harmon. And look, I hate to be a buzz killer when it comes to anti-vax. I really do. I hate having to not take a definitive side, which makes it seem like I'm siding with the enemy. But we have to break from the pattern of thinking that when someone doesn't agree with us, they are on the other side. That's like borderline personality stuff. You have to allow people to have not just the middle ground, but outside altogether, not participating. You don't have to believe. You can suspend judgment. And the reason why, again, my main reason for not going along with the crowd is because the crowd that sides with anti-vax is wrong about everything else. So it's like, well, they got one thing right, so let me just dilute my thinking by mixing in with them. And no, I can't do that. Oh yeah, Erica Creech, thank you for calling. So if you got the newsletter, you're apprised of all this stuff. So just really quick here. We did a metascript view of the two crashes. Square on Mars, fake, but it fooled Joe Rogan. It fooled David Icke. Spare parts, Anatomy Warehouse. So if you're wondering about how they found all these crisis limbs to scatter around Philly, go to anatomywarehouse.com. You can find anatomical models, healthcare simulations, bodies that are in various states of disrepair, eviscerated, bodies that bleed, bodies that cry. There's like a 5-year-old robot kid that talks. I mean, real sick. Crash victim predictive programming. She wore a sweater for a beer with the brand Crash. Well, no, the flavor crashed. The brand was Rheingeist, like river ghost. She dies in a river. Interesting. Staged photo from the drill on the water looked like the movie poster from Flight Risk. Nancy Kerrigan, worst crisis actor of 2025, couldn't get any tears. Tanya Harding returns. The only other thing, Jaron, I watched Jaron's live stream for like 20 minutes last night, and the only thing, my takeaway is this. If it wasn't for those of you calling the final experiment fake, he would have nothing to talk about. So we're doing him a favor by being skeptical about it. I watched Jaronism Unplugged, responding to those who say the Antarctica trip was fake. Look, it's already 2025. 1:30, it's almost, it's more than a month after the trip. And they're still trying to fight against the non-believers. The problem is this. His issue is this. The people who you would call flat earthers, which is a straw man, which is a misnomer in many ways, they're skeptics. They're non-believers by definition. It's going to be very difficult to convince them. Without evidence, that is. And then it raises the question of fakeability. But at this point, you could make the case that they went somewhere and they saw the 24-hour sun and we should just get past it. But I think that almost like they're so insecure about it and they're so mad about it, it just makes it all the more suspect. Girl says, silicone baby dolls in Gaza, so heartbreaking. Yep. Oh, yeah. The training dolls are so realistic that if you're not aware of them, you could easily be fooled. And they fool cameras. So you have these rubber dolls all over the place. The cameraman takes a picture and they pixelate the faces so you can't even tell. But they're getting better. I mean, robots that bleed. That's where we're at right now. Robots that bleed. And again, just this has to be reiterated. The Black Hawk was involved in a drill, a simulation when this happened. So if you're doing a simulation, you're not going to be taking your closed set and moving with an open to the public area. These are closed movie sets. So the fact that they were performing some routine or annual drill, yeah, that just says to me that this whole thing was a psyop. It wasn't, as Trump says, bad DEI hiring. It wasn't an assassination attempt. Wasn't an accident. And if you haven't seen the poster for Flight Risk, here you go. I mentioned before I watched the movie, I'm watching this to prepare myself for the onslaught of aerial immolations, and that happened. And irrational exuberance noticed that the plane, nose diving, like the one in Philly right here, kind of looks like, if you look at it sideways, it looks like a bunch of people on a river. Not a coincidence. World Stage says, can a rubber doll win a Golden Hoggy Award? Good question. I know that when they pull it off, when they do the nuke, the Golden Hoggy is going to Christopher Nolan. That's going to be his magnum opus. But yes, huge flight risk right now. Terrible movie cover. I'm not going to say it was a good movie. It was entertaining, but I don't watch these movies to be entertained. I watch them with a notebook in hand because I'm trying to get an idea of what they're going to do next. All right, thanks for joining. We'll see you all tomorrow. Sign up at IPS.monster to get the archives.
Infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane. Do my thing, do my thing, do my thing, do my thing. Infinite plane, yeah. I live on an infinite plane. I live on an infinite plane. They telling me different things. That's supposed to be pulling strings, but I know they playing the games. Since I found out today, I live on an infinite plane. I ain't playing no games. I'm on a different plane. I live on an infinite plane. Yeah. No, the news is fake. They're trying to choose my fate. I know the views is fake. They pushing the global stage. Fake news on the radio wave. Auto-hoax, the whole world is a stage. Body double like I'm Saddam Hussein. Doing my thing. Don't want the fame, just trying to make change. They took out my page. But an infinite gang, infinite plane, playing no games. Infinite gang, we ain't playing no games. Infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Infinite plane, the world that I'm living is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane, I'm doing different things. infinite plane. I'm on the infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. The police be pulling the strings. But they can't fuck with the gang. I'm on the infinite plane. Infinite gang. That's in your mouth. I stay in my place. Infinite plane society. Yeah, man. Tell her I can just black robot. Yeah, just do it, man. Can't take us down on this shit, man. You take that. Check the stats, man. Can't do it, man. Check the word is flat, man. Growth is a hoax, man. Take it down on shit right now, man. Shit, satellites are not real, man. I think satellites are real, man. I don't even know what the fuck it is. How about the news and shit, man? They already got it, man. I'm telling you right now, it's all